Hey everyone, sorry for the delay. Looks like our special guest is not here yet. So let's just go ahead and get started. This is continuing the reaction to Katie Magbanua's Proffer. So let's see, we were here roughly 40 something minutes in. Okay, let's get started.
Yeah, and he's the only one you tried to call at that time.
Yeah,
you got
so-
hold of Ortiz, but anyways,
Before that trip, you knew that he was going with him on that trip.
No, I never knew that he was
So
going
how did
with
you know
him.
to call him?
maybe not the first trip, but the second trip you knew he was there, right? Because you were talking to him during that second trip, right?
Talking
Talking to Sigfredo.
yeah, but he never told me that he was with Lewis. Like he never
explained that to
he
me
never
at all.
he never told me that he was with Lewis.
Okay.
Because even with the whole thing with the whole bump and everything, like that started coming out, and that's why I was like, why does it seem like to me that Sigfredo was, like something was going on with Lewis? Like he was almost kind of like, oh, let me find out. Like, what is somebody talking to Lewis, or is he like talking to, like police or whatever about something? Because why is his name coming up? But he never told me anything that he was with Lewis. Like I know, like that's one thing that I know. Like I never knew because I didn't know that till later on.
Okay.
And I know that I called him, but it's like, I don't know what made me call him that day, or if I had seen him beforehand, or.
Okay.
So in June, they made a trip up, and nothing happened. Did you know? Was there any conversation after the June trip with you and Garcia about nothing happening?
Was there a conversation after that?
Yeah.
Not that I can recall, no.
I mean, because obviously it didn't, and so I'm wondering what triggered them going back again in July.
And how do they fund that too? So obviously something had to go back and forth to Charlie to know that there's going to be a second trip. So what?
Tell us about it. Tell us what you
I don't
know.
know, I can't, because, June, you said that they went, obviously they went, or just one, I don't like that,
Yeah, they both went in June.
Uh-huh.
And they both came back. And then actually, I think Wendy came down to Miami, and that's when you all went to the beach.
That was around June?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I have never spoken to Wendy about anything, like.
That was the next question.
Yeah, like I've never spoken to Wendy about.
So you tell us, does Wendy know? Did Wendy know about this? Did Wendy know what was going on here? Did she know
From that
about
time, I think they kept it like, I think Charlie's always said that my family doesn't know anything, like, or Wendy doesn't know anything. So at some point, I figured out that Wendy. Yeah.
So Charlie would say to you,
Charlie's
my
like-
family knows nothing?
Yes.
Okay.
See, this is where it gets difficult because it's like like with the whole, okay, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's I don't know, like I just feel like every single time that like Charlie would like talk to his mom, like it was always like if I was like in the house, like he never talked to her, like on the phone with me, he'd always walk away and stuff. But I almost feel like his mom always knew something was going on, that something needed to be taken care of.
What do you ever
Like
tell
his
you
mom.
though? He would never tell you?
Like he kind of like he was the type that he would realize like, like my family doesn't know anything about that. But in my head, I'm like, okay, then why do you walk away? And like whenever we're talking about something, or like like you're keeping, you don't want me to hear it, like you don't want me to hear something. So obviously his mom must have known something.
Well, later on, throughout the whole bump, Charlie tried to get you to come down and meet with his parents. Do you remember that? We even played those calls in trial, so you've heard that call again since you've had the calls.
But not to meet his parents. It was to meet him.
To meet his parents, because you decided not to go inside. You said meet me down the street at the restaurant. I don't want to meet your parents. I want to be down the street at the
I don't
restaurant.
think I ever said that. I'm going to meet your parents.
That was on the calls. He was wanting you to. He was wanting you to come into the icon and meet with his parents. And you were like, yeah, I don't want you to come down. I don't want to come in there with them, and I want you to come down. But to Charlie. So
Yeah, like I
you don't remember that either?
no, I remember meeting up with him, but I don't remember him like insinuating like, oh, you'd have, he said that he was with his parents, but I've never like been
Never met with
and
his parents at
all, no, not like
Okay.
together like that, like we're all together now.
So never had any conversations with his mom, Wendy.
No.
Dad?
Never had a conversation with Wendy, never had a conversation with his mom. Now, my opinions on that is completely different.
Like you watched
Because,
trial. You done.
Yeah, like obviously, like I said, like I put the, you know, like that's how my brain is working too. It's like I'm putting things and I was like, okay, what's this
But what
happening
you just said is what you know. And
Yes.
that's literally all we're here trying to do.
Yeah.
Do not guess
And I
on
don't wanna
what you
say
would-
my opinion and I don't wanna
Yeah.
like, I don't
And
wanna
we
get
will
to
know
that
the difference
point.
in your opinion, but what you know and what you heard is all we're here trying to get to.
What you see and what you heard is important, even though what developed your opinion.
Yeah.
Did you see something outside of what you saw in trial? Did you see something before trial, before all this happened, that led you to that?
What do
So
you mean by that?
we'll go back to
Did you hear Charlie saying something? Did you see him doing something? Did you experience something that now you think, oh, that's why she knows, because Charlie said this or said that or did that? Is there anything that led you to believe
Well,
that?
the whole conversation with his mom, like, you know, like, again, it's like it was going back and forth. Like, he's having a conversation with his mom. He must have mentioned something about me because his mom is like obviously talking about me.
You're talking about the Title III calls again. What you heard in trial?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I guess we'll backtrack. Let's go back to July of 2014. They make another trip. Was the circumstances surrounding that was similar to the other one where money had to be exchanged to rent a car?
Yeah, if Sifredo had asked me, like, you
Do you
know,
remember that?
if he didn't have any money, he probably would have asked me, like, hey, I need some money.
But do you
Do you
remember?
remember?
I don't.
You don't remember
I
it?
don't remember if he had asked me for money for
Do
that.
you remember Sigfredo going to Tallahassee?
No, this is the whole time.
So I'm asking a couple specific things in this world because these are just things I'm trying to confirm. So, do you remember anything about and Rivera testified about this stuff? Do you remember anything about the Instagram and Rivera posting something stupid?
What he was talking about, like the tiger or whatever he had.
Yeah,
he had
It has changed, yes. It might be a zebra next week, I don't know.
I mean, like through the trial and stuff, but
No,
nothing
but
that
do you
happened.
remember?
Oh, like
you
him,
personally-
that happening? No.
Yeah, you don't remember calling and saying, "Hey, you dumbass, you put something on." I don't remember what you said.
No, I would have. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I never knew about Louis being with Sigfredo.
Alright, so
Like
let's
I
go
just
to
like I don't know how much I get stressed out, but like
let's go
I
to the
don't
part
know.
about after it's done. And there's a phone call between you and Garcia. It's the first phone call, you've seen it 1,000 times. First phone call after it's completed, they're about an hour and a half away from Tallahassee. And Rivera says he hears you and Garcia talking.
Mhm.
Where were you when that conversation took place?
When I was talking to Sigfredo on the phone,
After Dan has already been shot.
what was he saying that like I know, or like I said I know, but I never said I know, or even had a
We're getting
conversation.
there.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
That's
So
where
where were you? Yeah. Do you remember where you were when that call was
No.
made?
No.
Okay. So
I
you
mean,
don't remember?
Me and Sigfredo would talk, but I don't know. Like maybe I was in the house, in my house, in Treasure Drive.
Okay.
It's either that or I don't remember. I don't recall.
Well,
what was that.
let's get this. You did take money from Charlie's house
Yes.
and take it and meet Garcia and Rivera.
The day after.
That's where it gets a little blurry for me too, because I had gone, to Lewis's house plenty of times and go.
Okay, irrelevant.
Yeah.
You took money.
Yeah.
How much money did you get from Charlie?
I never saw it. He
What was
put
it?
it in the trunk. Okay.
Go through that whole thing. I don't care what day that was. Just tell me what that was.
Okay. The night that Charlie told me to come over to his house and that he was like frantic about everything, I was like, okay, whatever, I'll come over. That's when he had mentioned that about the accident, but I didn't know that Markel got shot. Like I didn't know about that. Like
You
I don't think I didn't, not even him. I don't know if it was him that he was, I think so, I guess, but like never saying about like him getting shot or whatever. That's why that phone call of me knowing would have never occurred, because I wouldn't even know anything, and Charlie didn't say anything on the phone.
Well, obviously a phone call occurred because there's records of that, and you and Garcia talked.
Well, yeah, like of me
But
saying
you don't
that.
remember the specifics that Rivera said.
Yes, yes.
Okay, fine, that's fine. We
Okay.
can work with that.
Before you went to Charlie's, you went and met with Sigfredo. When they got back to town that night, you went and met with Sigfredo. Then you went to Charlie's. You remember that?
I don't think I met with Sigfredo though, like, I
You
had
talking
records
to
and I
him,
was
did you
talking to him.
Talked to him, and then you showed up right there when they were close to her house, and the records show they went to was it Duffy's? Is that the sports bar they went to?
That was close by or
Yeah,
whatever.
right, close by.
I don't recall meeting up with Sigfredo. I do recall going to Charlie's house.
Because right after that,
Okay, let me break in here to give some commentary. So this is just so frustrating because this is where I feel that Luis Rivera was tons more credible in his proffer, because that was back, say, October 2016 when Luis gave his proffer. And he remembered very clearly that Sigfredo called Katie after they had killed Markel. And Sigfredo said the job was done. Katie responded, I know. So Luis thought it was really weird. How would she know the job was done? So just very frustrating. She also said she never spoke with Wendy, never spoke with Donna. So who knows what is the real truth? So let's take a look here. Yes, it's kind of frustrating that we have no guest with me because my voice is actually worse today. So I was hoping he'd be here to help talk. So let's scroll up here. Let's see. Why doesn't she finish her sentences? Yeah, she just talks in fragments, and then she gets interrupted too. So it's very frustrating. So let's see. I think her son might be 18 or 19. Daughter is probably around 12. Let's see. Who knows why? Most influential people are fellow prison lifers. Yeah, she didn't want to be too big of a snitch. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's weird because this is her last chance to try to make a deal. Okay, so she's not Puerto Rican. She came from the Philippines when she was 7. That came out during her, what do you call it, like a Arthur hearing, where she was trying to get released pending trial. So thank you, Judy. So she's 37. Okay, so Pat Sanford is the one who interrupts. Okay, so Jason is the one here on the left side. And let's see. Yeah, I don't know if they would do that. The kids are still pretty young, so it must be pretty embarrassing or sad for them to have both parents in prison. Yeah, I never heard anything about her dad. There was one commenter who said her father was in some sort of assisted living place, but I have no idea. Seemed like the father might have done some sort of import-export business, but the mother was, she was a nurse who was very much loved. She died of breast cancer back in 2017. Yeah. So this is why it's very aggravating, because she was the one who reached out to law enforcement. Okay. Okay, so you guys start talking about your husband's getting tired of your obsession with this case. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Jason Hewlin is the one on camera. Okay. Let me see. Okay, I didn't realize this. So the officer's wife is a judge. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. So she completely blocked out, doesn't seem to remember anything that happened the day that Dan was shot. So it's just, I don't know how many times I can keep saying frustrating. Okay. Katie needs better glasses because everything's blurry. I agree. Let her talk. Yeah, so she's lying, saying she didn't know Lewis was there. Yeah, she mentions the mold in the next video. Let's see. Yeah, so she was wasting time. Sanford got frustrated and left the room. Not yet, though. Okay, so let's keep going on. Yeah, I have no idea. It kind of shows how messed up she is in the head, because really, if she's the one who initiated it, she should be talking freely. So, yeah. Okay, so can they talk to each other? I don't think so, but he has written a letter to her in the past. So that's why people were saying that maybe the prosecutor should set up a meeting between them. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's keep going. This is going to take a long time.
That's when you talked to Charlie and you drove up there to Charlie's house. Right after you.
Because I know I left and we were like, Charlie was telling me to come over to his house.
Do you
At that
remember
time, he was
meeting with
kinda-
Sigfredo after he got back and telling you that it's taken care of or any of that? Like, do you remember meeting with him when he got back in town?
When he got back in town.
And I understand you don't know that they at this time that he killed him or shot him, but do you remember him meeting saying that this is handled? We handled this for your friend or anything?
After that, I don't know if he might have come. I don't know.
I'm just saying,
I'm not
we're
gonna
going to
say
facilitate
that
a phone call with Charlie to get the money.
Well, obviously Charlie knew something happened. Therefore, when that happened, he was supposed to have like money like ready
Okay,
because he knew that he had to pay.
so that was the understanding once it was done that he was to pay right away.
Yeah, but I wasn't like I didn't know I'm going up there to go meet up with Charlie so that I could, to get that. Like he doesn't want to say anything obviously on the phone.
Right.
So when I got up there, I just remember that he was like frantic and he was just like, I even remember he had like a gun with him and I was just like, what? Like, but he was like just acting weird at that when I got to his house. And I know he had taken like a Xanax and then I might have too because we just fell asleep. Like I can't even recall like what conversation was happening or whatever. I just know that he, in the morning before I left, he's like, hey, it's in your trunk. And I was like, okay, in my understanding that's the money in my trunk. Never looked at it, never opened anything, never had it like in my hand.
Okay.
So
So when you met up with him, where'd you meet up with him
with who? With Charlie?
at? No, with Garcia and Rivera.
So you left Charlie's house that next morning.
The money. And then when
Yes.
tell us
Okay,
what happened
when I
next.
drove back down, I think that's when I'm trying to look for Sigfredo, and he was like nowhere to be found, and that's when I had like called. I don't know if he called me or I called him or whatever, because that's why with the phone number was like confusing me because other people had their phones, like or you told me, I mean, like you said that it wasn't even, it was.
So you mean you called a number you
number.
had for Rivera that somebody else answered?
No, you're talking about Ortiz, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know if Sigfredo was he living in that apartment in Biscayne or whatever, like other people were
I
like
tell you
hanging
where
out.
it was. You know where it was.
Well, I know he was at Shrimp's house,
Yeah, I don't know where. I think he was couch hopping around that time.
Yeah.
but I think he had his apartment too, somewhere along like 70 something in Biscayne.
He could have. To be honest with you.
But either
And
way,
that's where like, all of them hung out or whatever, but like they would exchange phones and stuff, like other people, like, is the Ortiz number Hebreo's phone?
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember Hebrew was always like at his house, So I'm trying to contact them. That's why I'm never trying to contact Lewis.
So you're wondering
That
what
was
the
later.
money.
That was after you tried to call Lewis. You tried to call Lewis first on his old number, and then you called Eber after that.
Okay,
But
So all this was
that's
just
the
to
record
find
show.
Sigfredo.
yes,
So all these calls you're making is you now have the money, you left Charlie's house, Charlie gave you the money, it's your understanding, obviously you didn't see him touch it, I get that.
yeah,
But you knew that he put money in the back to pay them.
yes, yes.
So all these calls you're making is to try and find Sigfredo to give him this money, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Where did you find him?
I think I was parked behind, I don't know if I don't know how it came about, but like I just ended up like in the kind of like in the hallway of like the alleyway of Lewis's apartment.
Mhm.
And he just like jumped inside the car out of nowhere, like he
Lewis did?
no,
Oh, Sigfredo
did.
Oh, okay.
Because, I guess he didn't want me to know that he was somewhere else, and clearly he was at Shrimp's house, and, I couldn't find him or anything.
What made you go to the alleyway outside of Lewis's
I
apartment?
think he told me to go over there, or,
So you got a hold of him on the phone and he told you to go meet him over there?
yeah, I just thought that I had to go over there.
Okay.
What happened then?
So he goes, he gets in the car, I was like, hey, you got a package in the back, grabs it, and goes. And then I left to go home because, I left to go home.
Did you ever see it at all?
No, I never saw it.
In the package, you never, he just jumped out,
No.
grabbed it out of the trunk.
And he didn't give you a third
He-
of that money?
He didn't give me money till like he came back like later on. I don't know if it was the same day, but like then he gave me money.
How much did he give you?
I didn't I don't know.
Came back
Let me
where?
ask you a random question. Was it stable?
Okay.
The kid was
So
out.
you can't, how much he gave you, is that what you said?
Huh?
You don't know how much he gave you?
No, he didn't.
What
I mean,
did it
I
look
didn't count. Like I know it was, it was a couple stacks, but it's like I didn't not a specific number, and I'm not gonna say like 30 because that's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like that's a number that's like sticking out and
That's what Rivera said.
What's the
Yeah.
stacks of what? Stacks of what exactly?
stacks of like staple money.
What were the bills? Do you remember the size of the bill?
How much? What kind of bills were they? $1 bills?
I think they were like hundreds, and then maybe like hundreds and like 20, 20s, and
And they were stable.
yes.
Okay. Where were you at when he brought you that money?
I was in my apartment.
So he came back to your apartment?
Yes.
So the next part of it gets a little.
Well, can I
Yeah.
just, I mean, like, I don't want to because I just want to get it out of my head so that you get, obviously, I just know it was kind of like, and there's another thing that stick out, like that Charlie was saying about cleaning the money or like actually, I guess cleaning the money, because it was like, after I got the money and I put it away in my closet. Like I said, that's why I don't know the amount. I never counted it. I'm not there sitting and counting it. But it did get moldy. It was wet, it was moisture. So I think it was literally washed. Cause it was I was like, hey, this thing looks like, and I'm thinking in my head, or yeah. But he said stuff like that, and I just I didn't think about actually I didn't feel for it that it was wet or anything, but it started getting moldy and stuff, and I was like, oh, the money that you gave me is moldy. I think it was just wet. He was just dry it, just blow dry it, and I was like, okay. And then that was the end of it.
So
not that
Charlie's the one that was talking about cleaning the money. washing
Yeah,
it. Okay.
like I said, Charlie makes these comments and things that I would be oblivious to and not really pay attention to until after I'm things that he's saying. Like I said, he's he made sure that I knew that he didn't print that whatever it was in the envelope. He's like, oh, I wear gloves when I put it in. He's telling me things so that I guess he wouldn't be blackmailed or whatever.
So there's no way for it to come back to him. is what
Yeah,
you're trying to tell you.
he was gonna
I
deny
mean, he was
it.
using me through the whole thing, obviously, feeding me other stuff, and I believed it,
Right.
like an
So-
idiot.
So when Sigfredo paid you the money and he came back to your apartment and he gave it to you, did he tell you anything about what happened or how it happened?
You know, he never told me any details.
Okay, at what point did you find out that Marco was dead?
That I don't remember. I know from like the whole bump, like at that point.
Before that?
Something, I don't know if like somebody passed away. I mean, like if he passed away or anything, or like that even. That's where it gets blurry for me because I don't know when I found out that would have, you know.
You obviously knew before the bump, because that happened a couple years later. 2 years later, so.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
at what
I
point,
just don't know.
because you're working for Charlie, he's paying, you're supposedly cleaning the office is what you said,
Mhm.
right? And he's paying you money. At what point, while that's happening, do you know that he's dead at that point? Because the funeral's already happened, things are already on the news, all that stuff's happening already.
I believe so. I think, yeah, like I.
Do you know who told you, or how you found out?
I don't know if it was Charlie that told me.
I gotta go back, when Garcia gave you the money, did he tell you why, or did you know why?
I just knew that he had to take care. He did something that he's getting paid for. Like
He gave
that's
you
it.
money.
Yeah. He didn't tell me like what happened or how he got it.
So you knew that.
I mean,
was-
like I
Yeah,
got it
you
from
got
me,
it.
but you know.
You knew that was your portion of what Charlie put in that.
I mean, Sigfredo just tends to give me, you know, like he even like if he knows that I was like a stickler about like, you know, like, hey, you have to help me out with the kids or whatever. Like that's why I even put him on child support because obviously he blew through whatever money he had. I don't know how much money he had. I know he got, you know, like he just gave me a portion of it, and I don't know if that has something to do with his portion too, but I usually have.
Was there an understanding that you were gonna get a portion of it once they take care of this for helping?
Yeah, I mean, he was just gonna pay, like, not like, this is your specific portion, but he's like.
It was understanding you would get
give me the
some.
money. Yeah.
Right,
I
you
mean,
didn't know
like, he
amount.
would- Yeah,
Okay, so there's an understanding that you were gonna get some money once this was completed from what Charlie was paying.
well, for him to do this, like, it was just, it's so that I can have money, yeah, like, you know.
That's what I wanted to clear up.
Okay.
I just wanted to clear all that up because I know it's all processing in your head, you're going back and forth, so I wanna make sure we have it clear as to what your understanding of it was at that moment. Because that's all we're caring about, is your
My involvement,
perspective, your involvement,
Yeah.
what you saw and experienced during this encounter.
What knowledge you have, it's not so much your involvement because no matter what you did, it's over with for you now. You don't have anything else to get in trouble for. I want you to understand that. I know you don't want the perception, and it's hard to admit that yes, I did this and it was wrong. It's hard to admit it, and I know that's a problem for you, and you don't want that out there. And this is probably a conversation where if your attorney was here, we would step out and he'd have another conversation with you about this because it's really important that you tell us everything that you know.
Yeah.
And it's time now because nothing worse is going to happen to you for anything that you know or that you say. Nothing worse is going to happen to you. Let me ask you this: where are your kids right now?
Oh, with my family.
You're staying with your brother still? Okay. Has anybody ever threatened you or promised you anything not to testify or not to cooperate in
No.
this?
No.
Nobody's ever.
Nobody's
You're
ever
under no
threatened me.
coercion whatsoever
Nothing.
of why you didn't want to cooperate early on or
I
anything
mean,
else.
that's a whole nother ballgame of like, why I never even went for it. Like, even from the first day that I had gotten arrested, like with everything being retracted, like we were all so confused. We were like, even when Sigfredo got arrested, and I'm like, I blocked everything off. Everybody's like blowing up my phone trying to tell me like, what happened or whatever, and like that he was involved in all of this. It's like, I just didn't want to hear anything about it. I didn't go out. You think I was there like Googling? Like, I did not want to know. Like, I know I had to take care of my kids and that's it. And
But you read the probable cause with the attorney early on. So you knew what the facts were of what he was arrested for.
Sigfredo.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, like I knew the facts from his probable cause.
Right.
I went to go hire his attorney. So it's like his attorney started like advising me, like telling me like, hey, like you might, like need to get your own attorney because you have, like they're saying your name and all this stuff or whatever just to protect myself. And that's when I had hired Tara. Well, I had somebody else and then I hired Tara after.
Okay. Well, here's what. You ever heard the term minimization? minimizing someone's role in something. A lot of people have a hard time admitting to what they did and what their role is in something, and it's called minimizing. They minimize their role in it, and I don't want you to do that here.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's only going to hurt you.
I know.
We have a strong case on Charlie. It's stronger than what we had on you.
Yeah.
You know, this is not something that we have to have you or anything. We're hoping you're going to tell us the truth, and we're hoping you're going to come forward and tell us everything.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't want you to minimize this because it's only going to hurt yourself. Okay? So, I get.
But that's why it's like, and I get it, and I get.
Because everything you're telling us is how you didn't know this, you weren't aware of this and that.
Because nothing was ever like for certain, and that's why I say it in that way. Like this whole thing, the whole time I was, and I'm not gonna put blame on anybody else or whatever, because I take accountable of like all of this, and that's why I've been fighting. I'm fighting the whole time too, is because it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like if I was to have cooperated from the beginning, that destroys everything, even Sigfredo, even, and I get it, and I get you guys. Everybody's already had this whole perception. I just want a chance to get home to my children. This is why I'm in this situation right now.
Right. And that's what I'm trying to tell you right now, is being totally honest is what can help you.
But
if you're holding back and trying to minimize your role in this, it's only going to hurt you. Okay? Does that make sense?
And I understand that, but I'm not going to be, but it's to the point too that I'm like, I wasn't for certain with a lot of things. And that's why I'm not going to go.
I understand you're not certain what was going to happen. You're not certain how they were going to handle it or what the actual planning of any of it was, but it was an understanding. There was some kind of communication, some kind of conversation that happened, where it was an understanding to you that Charlie was going to give you money and you were going to have Sigfredo take care of Charlie's problem. That was a certain understanding,
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
I understand that you don't remember the exact words of how it was said, but that was an absolute, right?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
knew that he was going to pay you money
Yes, ma'am.
to give to Sigfredo to take care of the problem. You knew that you were going to get a portion of that money for taking care of this problem for Charlie. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what we're getting. We understand you won't remember exact words and exact conversations, but the actual context, that's what the context means. Is the actual conversation, the understanding of what is going to occur and how you're going to be compensated for taking care of that issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's what we need to get to, is those conversations and how the planning of it, how it came about, and then how once it was taken care of, how the compensation happened and how they knew to compensate at that point. And then
I mean, it was
everything that happened
basically
afterwards.
like an understanding without verbalizing it. That's the part. It's like, okay, like that's gonna happen, and then like again, I just relay, but I can't tell you like specifically. I think it's designed for me to really not know, and that's the part. Don't you think if I would have known specifics and everything up from the day one, I would have been like, hey, you don't want to spend.
But you knew you
One
was
of
going
our
to money.
assumptions
I
we
know,
always
but I'm
had
saying like.
is accurate though.
Yeah.
The walls.
Yeah, they kept the walls.
But it's totally walled off, and you were walling off people yourself too.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. But I don't want you to hurt yourself by trying to minimize yourself. We're having to drag things out.
Believe me, I just want to get, like I said,
want you
like
to
I'm
tell
not,
us
the
everything
one
that
thing that I
happened.
don't want is to waste time. I know this is my opportunity and I get it.
Listen,
Whatever it takes to get it out, I understand it's stressful.
I mean, it would be easier to be like, yeah, I'm for certain, like
one
this
thing
is,
that I would
this happened.
suggest after this one is if you go back to your bunk and you trust people enough to not steal your shit, if you think of stuff, write it down.
And that's where I've always been afraid of too, because even in
Somebody
county,
will have.
like, yeah, people were trying to go state on people like
Because you
on a
have
daily
a case that
basis.
people want to jump on.
Of course, and it's,
I don't know,
but it's been years. It's been years. I'm
Right.
trying
we do have to
not
take that in consideration that we are now over 8 years since this all happened.
Yeah.
9 years since the
I'm
conversation
not the
started.
same person that I am now from
Not
when I
even
was
close.
there. I feel, like this is by far the most detrimental thing that has ever happened. It's destroyed Markel. It's destroyed his family.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
like my children don't have parents. It's like
Yes.
I've lost my mother. I haven't even dealt with that. I haven't dealt with that grief. Like there's a lot of things that I've just suppressed so much. And I get it, and like believe me, that's why I wish you guys could just put something in my head, extract all this stuff. But And I get it, and
You're,
it'd be a lot
you're answering
smoother.
our questions. You're answering our questions. And I think I'll try.
Okay, just gonna jump in here with a tiny bit of commentary. So at least she did finally mention Dan Markel and his family, because what's disturbing in all of this is that people like Charlie and Katie, they're not focused at all on Dan Markel, the true victim here. So at least she mentioned that. But I did do a little bit of Google research, and it did confirm what one of the commenters said, which is that taking too much Xanax over an extended period can interfere with your memory. So that could have happened to her. Maybe she is trying her best, but she really can't remember because, first of all, she's not that smart. Secondly, she's got psychological issues. Thirdly, the Xanax probably did do something to her memory. So let me look here at some comments real fast. Okay, great. The prosecutor is brilliant. Yeah, hopefully perjury. I don't know. I mean, you guys should watch Brother Counsel's video where recently he talked about the chances of Winty facing perjury charges. He thought that it's pretty unlikely because, she was sneaky. She said a lot of things as if it were like, I'm not sure, maybe, I can't remember, just being very dodgy throughout the whole testimony. So it's hard to get people on things, especially if she could just claim she didn't remember it. That could be one way of not being charged with perjury. So let's see here. Okay, thank you. Suppressed. Yeah, it is weird. She skipped tons and tons of details. Yeah, she just has no details. Okay, yeah, I don't think her appeal really has merit. So it's still going on. Okay, exactly. Who would be so stupid not to ask how much they're getting paid or count the money? Yeah, so it's pretty unbelievable that she didn't know how much she and Sigfredo were going to get paid. This has to do with the murder. So why would people pay you so much money if it were not for murder? Plus, she would probably want to know that the job really had been done. So, just send somebody off to kill somebody and then not have any confirmation that it's been done. Okay, so let's see. Thank you, Colleen. Really appreciate your support. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel this way. Katie doesn't deserve a thing with her lies and behavior. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's very strange. Drinking too much toilet wine. Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, traumatic event, huge event. She remembers it. Okay, don't believe anything she says. Yeah, that's right. Kawas said she had COVID twice. Oh, okay. I didn't note that. Thank you, Hugh. Talk on the streets about Xanaxes. They're called forget-me-nots. Okay. Keep bringing her back so the story gets better. Yeah, not sure. But then the defense would jump all over her and say she changed her story because she knew what she needed to say to get a deal. So she's kind of boxed in to what she said here, plus the second video. Yeah, has she had a concussion? Yeah, who knows? Haven't heard about that. So, His brother counsel. Yeah, he didn't want to say for sure. He said he doesn't know, so he didn't want to give an opinion, but he's still reading up on the case. Oh, okay. So you had COVID, your memory was wiped. Oh, sorry to hear that. Well, probably not, but it makes sense that the state wouldn't be giving her a deal right now because that would really hurt her credibility if she testified at trial and said, now I get to get out like in whatever, 10 years because I'm testifying. So, I mean, something could still happen, but doesn't look like it for now. Yeah. Yeah, I know I sound sick, so that's why I'm like, thanks, Marcus. You didn't show up. I was counting on the guest to help me out today, so not feeling too great. Let's see. No, I still have the Donna outfit. I got rid of the windy dress, though. Yeah. Let's see. Did it have? Oh, I don't think so. I mean, they can see a psychiatrist or see like a behavioral health person, but in terms of therapy, I don't think so, but I'm not sure. So sorry about that. Okay. Perjury could apply with Wendy. Yeah, it could because she kept telling different stories. Oh, thank God Marcus is here. Okay. So you guys can no longer have to deal with my crappy voice. Here is
Hey,
Hey,
I'm
where
so
were
sorry.
you?
I'm so sorry I put you on struggle streaming and color people time.
Oh, okay. I figured maybe something happened with your family. So
Yeah, I had a car issue that required a jump, so I literally just got in the house and I was like, I sent you a message. It was like, hey, do you want me to jump on? And I was like, well, let me just go backstage. But I apologize
Yes.
to your audience and especially to you for having y'all on CP Color People time. But but I
Okay.
had an emergency that popped up, so I definitely apologize, and hopefully my commentary can make it up for you, and I owe you one. And forgive me, but I'm gonna provide some good commentary.
Okay, great. Well, people are happy to have you here because I was just saying that, my throat and my voice sound pretty crappy today compared relatively so. It's even crappier. So yeah, so I was really hoping to have a guest to help me talk better. So yeah, I'm still trying to seek medical treatment. So anyway, so that's my background here. So Marcus, do you want to go ahead and tell people who you are? Tell us about your legal background.
Okay, sure. My name is Marcus. I'm the debt-free dad. I do finance and attorney reactions. A little bit of my background from a legal standpoint. It started out real uneventful and honestly, and not that exciting. I did working with judges. So working with judges, helping them draft opinions on cases. After that, I kind of pivoted, and once I became licensed, I started doing criminal defense. You name it, I did it. Well, I did a lot of armed robberies. I didn't do anything like no mass murder now that I think about it. But, low level misdemeanors, high level felonies, I did that type of defense work. No one really wanted to do the fraud and the embezzlement cases because it's a different type of investigation. It's probably not as sexy and as attractive. So they said, give it to the geeky guy with the glasses. So I started doing a lot of the embezzlement cases, things like that, and kind of carved out a niche. And then I transitioned to the prosecution defense, the prosecution investigation side with the federal government. I worked in various federal inspector general's office where you look for fraud, waste, and abuse, whether it's the banking industry, the housing industry, aid for government programs like, PPP loans, TARP funds from the housing bailout in 2008. And currently, I'm going to be transitioning to another federal alphabet agency. I can't disclose what it is, but trust me, if you watch a bunch of series on Netflix, you'll probably know which one.
Oh, really?
That's,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
kind of my legal background and what my specialty areas are in the defense investigation and a little bit of civil litigation as well.
Mhm. So, do you actually get into any criminal cases that are in the news, like true crime cases?
Um, true crime cases that are in the news, yeah, but like I said, it's like it's not as it's probably not more important. I don't want to couch that. I don't want to say it's more important. It's not as captivating when you're put in like the COO of some financial institution like Wells Fargo and Bank of America. So it is cases that make the news. Pharmaceutical companies, off-label marketing of drug, physicians who have pill mills. A lot of those cases make the news. A lot of them are, I mean, you're talking multi-million-dollar cases with multi-million-dollar damages, but they aren't like something that's going to be on Investigation Discovery that's like really juicy where somebody, hacked up somebody or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, have you had time to read up on the Markel case?
I actually have had a chance to read up on it, and when I couldn't read up on, I actually went back and watched some of your older videos to kind of get up to speed on it. And I did watch the testimony that you sent me prior to this, which I thought was interesting. I will tell you the first thing I thought, because I've never really that was my first time seeing the parties and everything as I started to dive into it, and I'm impressed that they actually got a conviction because she has a look that a jury normally likes to believe.
What do you mean? You thought she was pretty?
Now she has a look that's normally appealing to a jury. I've, doing defense work, I've had clients where I'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna have a jury trial, and this guy got 87 tattoos on his face and 13 teardrops." Well, I can't say those teardrops was for his puppies that passed away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She had a really clean cut look that presents well to a jury. So, I watched that video first. Then after I watched that video, it started out with her talking about how she fabricated her testimony. And so I immediately stopped it and I kind of went back to kind of get up to speed to see how we got to that point. But yeah, but then when I went back, I saw how they got the conviction because of this little thing we like to call evidence.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a mountain of evidence, like tons of wiretaps, texts between them, the
Right.
money trail between Charlie Adelson and Katie to Sigfredo and Lewis. So, okay, well, cool. So, can we go ahead and play some more?
Go ahead,
this
dive in.
Proffer?
I'm at your disposal.
Okay, sure. So let's watch it for, say, like 5-8 more minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay, here we go. Guys, please support his channel, Debt Free Dad. Okay, here we go. This is like in the middle of the first video.
You paused it at a guilty look.
Articulate what you were saying. Is it basically, it's not a code talk, but there was a mutual understanding of the language in which you all were speaking, that when a conversation was had, you knew what was supposed to follow that conversation.
But I played on into a lot of the things too. It's
Right.
like,
And let's take it to the phone calls that were afterwards. You guys started talking about real estate and how much a piece of property would cost. You knew what Charlie was talking about.
yeah, like I knew.
You knew what the
I
code
knew what
was. If he was talking about the homicide and this is what the money was. Kind of similar to the whole 2 years of process that took place for this case. One of the discrepancies I think we've always had is when you started working for Charlie's business. I know you've always said it was.
I've lied a lot. It was me lying literally to him. It wasn't even like lying
That's
to
fine.
you guys.
Was that part? Was he doing that as more of a payment to you for this case, or was that separate from paying you back for this case?
I mean, for now that I think about it, for both, I guess. Like I needed it. I needed that insurance. Like I needed that situation for.
I know you need it for insurance.
Yeah.
That's a given. I mean, we understand, and there's documentation of that. But him giving in to you and allowing you to do that, saying, "Yeah, I'll pay you to do nothing in my office," and we agreed how you didn't work for Charlie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I lied to him a lot about that too. Like
That's I think he he probably lied to you as well.
No, I know he lied to me. He lied to a lot about a lot of things.
The Lexus. Is there any more to that story, or was that you were
Oh,
struggling?
I literally bought that Lexus from him. That's why I like it. Like, there's certain things.
Certain things
which,
you get
like,
frustrated
it's
about.
like, yeah,
You're
because
wrong.
it's like you guys were making it out to be something
Where did you
else.
get the money
It's
from
like-
then? You didn't come out of your bank account.
I
Pay for it.
I was working in the was I working in? Yeah, I was working as a bartender at the time. I always kept money on me. Like, I always just kept money on me, and like I would deposit on
But
that.
he
But
gave
I
it to
had,
you, what, for cheap,
How much?
right?
How much you pay for it?
I think I ended up paying like 17 something, but like I put a different amount on the title.
And how did you pay it?
Like, I know it sounds weird because he's like he gave this money, but
He's paying for
but
the-
yeah, but it's
paying
like
the
I'm
bills,
paying,
paying
like I have paid him back to, you know, like.
How did you pay him that money for the car?
I had the cash.
So you had $17,000 cash,
1,700.
1,700.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you paid 1,700.
And it sounds weird, like, you know, I'll be like, oh, don't pay for this, and like, even, you know, you guys were talking about like the maintenance for the car and all that stuff, or whatever, which started breaking and stuff, and that's why he was just like taking care of it.
What about any trips? Did he pay for any of y'all's trips? Any
I
vacations?
went to, for me and the kids, because I was gonna go on a trip with the kids with somebody else, like with one of my girlfriends. We were gonna go to Dominican Republic, but then that trip didn't happen because my passport, I think, was expired the day, like I didn't even know, because I remember like even my mom coming over or whatever, and I was like, oh my god, my passport. So like my friend didn't end up going, and then I got back with Sigfredo, and at that time I was gonna go visit his mom and her boyfriend lived in Dominican Republic. They moved there, so I was gonna go there myself. Had nothing to do with Sigfredo, had nothing to do with Charlie, like me telling him, oh, he has to go get, you know, buying this trip for me or whatever. Like, he wasn't, like, he was, you say like satisfied, yeah, I can see it now, like, you know, like, okay, you know, let me keep her happy type, so that I don't ever go against him, but we did still have that friendship too, like,
Yeah.
even after, so.
So your understanding at the moment of that, after all this, he's letting you work at his business to help you out as a friend. He's doing these things. That was your thought at the time of it, but obviously you have a different view of it now. Is that correct?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
I didn't
You don't think it was
maliciously
a
did it.
payment? You don't think it was some form of payment for
No,
how you helped him
I
out?
mean, he already made that payment.
But
Like,
you didn't
you
think
know,
he
to
continued?
further, yeah, like I see that now, like that's what I said, like I see it now, but it wasn't like at that time, like, oh, okay, let me pay you extra and extra and extra and extra after that.
Like when,
Which
like in the
part?
middle of
That's
the
what
night
was
when you
happening.
took out your wisdom teeth, did you pay him for that? When he came in the office, took out your wisdom teeth in the middle of the
I don't
night?
think I paid him for that. For my
So
wisdom
that was
teeth.
free.
But I paid his office when I got my teeth whitened and stuff. Like I did,
there's a lot
it
of
sounds
little
like I shouldn't have had to pay for
prescriptions
that.
and stuff that he called in for you and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of favors. I mean, it's a,
But that's just, I think that's
think
not
it's
just
just
like
him being a
towards
friend.
me, but he's like that, like he does favors for people,
Yeah.
like, you know, it wasn't like, hindsight, yeah, I see that now, okay, you know,
Yeah.
it's keeping me happy, like you guys have always said, keep me happy.
we only got 45 minutes, so let's talk about the things we don't know. Let's try to talk about things that you know that we don't know, that like conversations you had with Charlie after the bump, things like that. Conversations you had over the phone that weren't recorded or through WhatsApp. Did he at some point come to you and tell you to switch over to WhatsApp?
We've
During
used
the bump?
WhatsApp every now and then, so it was never like to just, okay, talk to me
So
through
y'all been
WhatsApp.
doing it for a while.
Yeah.
What are some of those conversations you had with him about this, even after the bump? Some things that we don't know about.
Because it's like, that's what I'm saying, it's like, it's not like, I mean, all that stuff has been recorded, but I never thought, you know, like, we're not really thinking that it's like we're being recorded at that time. I guess he was thinking that he was being recorded.
Okay, so he was. But that conversation at Dolce Vita,
Yes.
what do you remember about that conversation?
Well, that's when, okay, so the bump happened, right? And then he had spoken to his mom.
Yes.
Obviously, his mom was freaking out about something, and that's why he needed to talk to me. So when he spoke to me about it, he's feeling me out, and I'm like trying to find out what's going on and stuff, but not really like taking. I honestly, like, I wasn't taking it seriously. Like, I wasn't like heightened by it. Like, okay, like it's a serious situation, but I was like at the same time, I'm
I
like,
think you
not.
had that thought for a little while.
It was, but
So,
you know,
yeah.
you were setting him up and kind of saying,
Okay.
when y'all first met in the car first. Do you remember that now?
Yeah.
Y'all first met in the car. What did he say in the car to you when you first sat down? He said, all right, I just met with my mom. Blah. What did he say?
I don't, like, he didn't say, nothing that's.
He told you about the bump, right? He told you what happened there. This is the very first time he told you about the bump. Because over the phone, you couldn't talk about it.
Okay.
He didn't know. He met with his mom in person. He drove to your office. You came out Optimar and you got in his car. What was that? What did he tell you?
I
That's
don't
a
remember.
big
I
thing
know.
that he talked about.
Because I didn't even remember that time that we spoke in the car until
So we brought it up again.
after. Like, I didn't even remember, like, okay, like, from my understanding, I just probably jumped in his car like really quick, and then like, okay, where do you want to eat, or where do you want to talk, and then.
Well, he showed you the note, right? He showed you.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah. So, Marcus, what's your opinion about this so far? Like her demeanor, the way she's talking?
I'll tell you, probably unfortunately, because I don't think that many hours were needed, but I took a lot of training and body language, how to detect the person, truthfulness, and most of his body cues. You could probably Google it, and it's just something that they make federal attorneys, if you're a prosecutor or investigator. Sometimes defense attorneys may pay out of their pocket to take it, but she generally is giving off cues of someone whose story is kind of BS. And some of the things that you just look for, and some of it could be attributed to nerves, but a lot of times you see the lack of eye contact. You see a lot of the times looking down to the right when you're trying to recall a fact. Um, a lot of attorneys, what they do prior to doing these, and investigators prior to do this, hell, I do it prior to doing a job interview. If someone I want to hire somebody, a lot of times these interviews always start out with asking a person a truthful question that they would have no reason to lie to, but it's a question that would actually have to make you recall a fact. So a lot of times you'll see these things start out as, or I would start mine out as, if I was doing this investigation or interrogation, I would say, hey, okay, tell me what high school or what elementary school you went to. And what was your favorite subject? Or who was your favorite teacher in elementary school? Because if you ask most people who are adults, who are your favorite teacher in elementary school, you have no reason to lie about that. So you're going to give off physical cues to recall a truthful fact. You know, Miss such and such, Miss Smith, well, you're going to give off a physical cues, and you kind of just store that in your memory bank, because then you log that as, okay, when this person is recalling truthful information, these are the physical cues they gave off. They look in up to the left or down and to the right, or they lean back in their chair and go like this. And so you see a lot of times they start out with that, so you can bank what is a truthful reaction to something they wouldn't have any need to lie about. So then as you dive into the interview, the interrogation, you can see reactions that are counter to that. It can give you a suspicion that they may be disingenuous.
That's good advice. So you would do that with a job interview candidate?
Oh,
as
yeah.
well as with a criminal defendant?
I get real psychological with it. People like to cap or lie on their background, on their application about their skill set. So I start a lot of, if I'm sitting and I'm a hiring official, I normally start out my interviews like that. I'll ask a series of questions that the average person would think is really random. I may ask one question just to see how they was going to think. What is the one purchase that you make of an item that costs $10 that is of significant importance to you, and why. I'll ask a random question like that because I want to see how they think. But then the other thing I would ask would be them to recall something that they probably have no need to lie about. So when I start asking them about their experience, okay, you say you've worked in C++ for X amount of years, and when they give me a reaction that's counter to when they record that truthful information, it could just be something, another fact point, another data point you have to help you make informed decision.
Yeah. And what about like back when you were doing criminal defense? How would you prepare somebody if they wanted to make a deal with the prosecution?
Well, I guess typically how I would normally start it, once you get all the evidence and the discovery, you have a chance to go over everything with your client. I always tell them best case scenario, sentence wise, worst case scenario. Because as you know, a person sentenced for committing a crime, whether at a state level or federal level, it really boils down to three things. It boils down to their prior interactions with the court, how many prior convictions you have. It looks at aggregating factors for whatever the offense you may be charged with, and they look at what may be statutorily defined as mitigating factors. So you can generally give, hey, based on your prior contact with the court or your lack of contact with the court, the charges, worst case scenario, you could be looking at this. Best case scenario, you can be looking at this. And then I will break down those mitigating factors. These are things that I think we can argue is mitigating factors where we have an opportunity to see if we can get the prosecutors to agree to give you somewhere in the middle. You normally aren't going to get the sweetheart deal, and you normally aren't going to get the book thrown at you, because if you're going to get the book thrown at you, hey, I might as well just make you earn it at trial if that's the case. So you want to try to find that sweet spot in the middle, or a little bit, 40% towards the jacked up part, 60% to that sentence that's on the lighter side. Once the client is kind of aware of what their exposure is, at that point is when I engage in discussions with the prosecutors. And at that point, it would be solely, it's solely based on relationships. Early on as a defense attorney, I used to think, man, I don't give a damn about these prosecutors' everyday life, what they got going on. I got to get this work done. I got to get this caseload down. But one thing I found out, and I'm sure you can attest to, as you build and cultivate relationships, the fact that when I didn't have a case going on, I can go to the prosecutor's office and say, yo, how did that 5K race that you were running and go? That's something that carries some value. It's something that has a little bit of weight, and it could potentially benefit you in working out a negotiation because you have that type of relationship. So client knows that exposure, best case scenario, worst case scenario, hopefully is with the prosecutor who I have a relationship with outside of just handling casework. And I go have lunch with prosecutors, defense attorneys now all the time, but hopefully it's someone you have a relationship with, because that always helps. Of course, they're going to give you I think normally, because I do this, now that I'm on the opposite side, but normally I'll say, I always start out playing hardball. That's just kind of how negotiations work. Like, no, why would I give you something on the lower spectrum of the exposure as opposed to the high spectrum? And it's just the engagement of discussion. It could be arguing mitigating factors. It could be some additional evidence that may have made itself present to me that could have been unbeknownst to the prosecution at that time. Because that does happen. Even though you actually get all of the discovery, it's actually not uncommon for a defense attorney to get all of the discovery, but through their own independent investigation, find out a fact that could have some bearing as a mitigating factor to reduce that exposure if you're trying to work out a plea agreement. But that's normally the process that I would go to, making sure the client's informed. Because you're going to get a complaint with the Bar Association if you don't let your client know what their potential exposure is, but you're already in the back corner negotiating the plea agreement. Then you come up and say, okay, this is what they got you. That's the bad way. That's probably not the most wise way to go about it, because you can set yourself up for a big time bar complaint. You definitely want to avoid those.
Okay. Okay. You want to continue watching?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Did not show me, I swear, it did not ever show me any note, anything. Because even in that video, like you see him, he's
Pulls it
going
out,
like this,
he's reading
but
it.
he never, yeah, like he read it, but he never showed it to me.
Well,
He
he
made
probably read it
sure
to you. Did he read it to you? Did he pull it out in the car?
he got some information, like he's like talking about it, but he's never. Because why wouldn't he just show it to me? Like it's like he
Well, he
kept
didn't trust
me.
you. He didn't trust you. He didn't know if you were trying to get more money out of him. He didn't know if it was you extorting him. I get that. But I'm just trying to get you, what did he tell you in that car? We weren't part of that conversation. We recorded that.
Yeah, nothing that stuck out to me that,
Nothing
you know.
that you remember? Okay.
I literally felt like we just went. I went in his car. Like he's like, oh, probably like parked over here. Like where are we gonna eat?
Okay.
But no conversation about anything. And that's why it was like kind of funny too. That not funny, but you know, like about like maybe he was like frisking to see if I was like wired or something. I'm like, none of that happened. Like literally, we didn't even like. How long were we in the car? I don't even remember being in the car that long. Nothing stuck out in that conversation.
Okay. Well, another conversation, we talked about a while ago when you drove down there to meet with him, and he was with his parents at the Icon, and you met him at the restaurant. What was that conversation about?
Okay, when I had met out, because I was getting upset too, because I needed to get something signed from him for like insurance purposes or whatever. And then I had it with me, and I was already in a fight with Sigfredo. That's why I was like in Yendra's house. But I was telling him like, meet me somewhere closer. I didn't want to go drive all the way down to South Beach or whatever, but was talking to his parents.
That's the phone conversation. I get that. We have that.
Yeah.
You know what you said on the phone. What happened when you got there?
When I got there, he was already like, I was trying to look for him, and he already finished his conversation with his parents. So whatever his conversation with his parents is probably something that he relied to me, but I can't remember what we spoke about. From the bump, probably. That's the only thing that.
Because that's what happened.
Who is this?
You weren't talking on the phone anymore. Y'all were meeting in person at this point. So he would
Yeah.
meet in person and talk to you about all this.
The bump already happened, right?
Right.
So this is when he had spoken to me. So he's probably like just telling me.
Not that probably, tell us what he told you about the bump. Not he's probably telling me or you're assuming. Tell us what he told you about the bump.
That his mom got approached, and that's when the whole Lewis thing started sticking out in my
So
head.
tell us the best you can recall about that conversation, how he told you it. So he told you his mom got approached, what else? Not the Lewis conversation, what was the Lewis conversation?
Okay, that his mom got approached, and that his mom said, that somebody said my name to his mom. So I don't even know. Because I'm a little bit, like, I'm kind of confused now.
You're confused with what you remember and what you're trying
Yeah, like what happened, like what occurred or whatever. Because it's like the whole Dolce Vita, like I was even confused when we were talking.
What were you confused about?
When he was like asking me questions, he's trying to ask me about like if this is somebody like I guess trying to set him up or trying to extort money from him. Okay, that's what like extorting money from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking in my head, because then Sigfredo thinks that Lewis has something to do with like getting money out of his family, and that's why I think Sigfredo started to get a little like suspicious about it. And that's when I put two and two, and I was like, okay, so then Lewis has something to do with this too, because why is he acting like this? But Sigfredo's not telling me like what's going on. Kind of like I'm just gonna take care of it. I'm gonna take care of it, Kate. Stop talking, like. And I would try, and at that point, I'm, because I'm living with him and everything, I'm like nagging him. I'm like, what's going on? Like, what's really, like, what happened? And he's not telling me anything. And that's the part that I wanted to speak to Sigfredo about, because I wanted to know. At this point, it's like, I want to know what happened, because like, why, like, just clear out this whole thing.
And
Because
that was a little bit later, because you actually had that conversation with him over the phone after y'all were messing up the phone number. After Charlie left you, you never called Sigfredo. You went home that night and talked to him, right?
Okay, wait, after Charlie.
So after Charlie came to your office and told you my mom got bumped into, this person came, gave my mom this paper, and this is all the different people it could be. It could be somebody extorting this, it could be all these other things.
Yeah,
You didn't
I
call
went on.
Sigfredo and talk to him
No,
about
no,
it.
no, we,
Why didn't you talk
we
to him?
didn't even talk.
You didn't know.
On the phone. Sigfredo at that point didn't want to talk on the phone at all. Like he was already like suspicious about everything. He thinks that Lewis is like setting him up or something is happening or like that has to do with the police. Like
Okay.
so at that point
Lewis is ratting on him.
it's either that or it has to do it's something with Lewis. He didn't tell me. That's why even when we got home we didn't even like talk about it. Like it was like, don't worry about it, I'm gonna take care of it.
At this point, did you still not know Lewis was involved?
Well, at this point, I had an assumption, yeah, that he has something to do with it. Of course. I mean, even that's why it's like I'm looking back, and it's like what like they're always together, but at the same time, it's like why would Sigfredo even need him to do anything when I went to you specifically? Like, why are you why are you involving?
You never got a chance to ask him that.
No, and that's what I wanted to ask him all of that stuff, and for him to tell me because I know he'd open up and tell me. Like I know you guys think that we were trying to like have this elaborate plan or whatever, but I just really wanted to talk to him and like for him to finally say things because there's a lot of questions where I feel like I got
It's not so
stuck.
much that we didn't want you to have an elaborate plan. It's like Pat said a little while ago that you giving us information Garcia has, we can't use anything like that. We have to get it directly from Garcia.
And there's a lot of things that only
And that's
Sigfredo
one
knows,
day
and he
we would
never
hope
told
he
me.
would talk to us as well. But
Okay, I was on mute. Okay, how are you feeling, Marcus? Are you bored?
Nah,
Frustrated?
I'm good. I'm good. You hear me? Can you hear me? My audio is good?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I laughed at one of the comments because someone said I can't recall who said it. They can't understand why the investigator don't want to just choke her. And it's funny because I watched that and it's not necessarily a bad thing, and sometimes you have to do it. But from the way they're asking questions, they're combining techniques of an interview and techniques of an actual interrogation in doing this. And because there is a specific difference, and I know someone asked what training I went to. One of them was a training by a company called Reed and Associates. That was early on. I don't think they're the standard in that training, but that was early on in my career, one of the first ones. It was maybe a 2-week long training just on an interview and interrogation process. And I pulled it up because, when you're watching these things as a good baseline, interviews are normally just fact-finding things. I'm asking open-ended questions because I really don't know what happened. Most of the times, it's probably a witness. So you ask a lot of open-ended questions. Interrogations are a lot more direct, akin to a cross-examination. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I already kind of know the answer to these questions. I want to ask real strategic questions to steer you in a way to get a response to this specific point that I want. So it's interesting because they're kind of doing both. There's some instances where they're asking open-ended questions because they look like they want to kind of piece together the pieces that they don't know. But when she kind of get lost and confused or disoriented by how they present a question, or she just doesn't know an answer, they kind of narrow it back down and they'll ask more focused, specific questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's frustrating because Sigfredo Garcia apparently did tell Lewis that they were doing this job for a lady who wanted her kids back, and said that, supposedly pointed to some lady that was looking at them the day before the murder, said, hey, there's that lady, there's Wendy. She's the one that's hiring us to do the job. So it did give Lewis the impression that Sigfredo had, in fact, met Wendy. Sigfredo referred to her as his homie. But here, Katie is acting like, what? I didn't even talk to Wendy myself. That Charlie kept them all walled off. So it just doesn't make sense with what Lewis is saying. And Lewis is the hitman who cut a deal early back in 2016, and he's testified multiple times. And I mean, I found him credible with
Right.
what he said versus what Katie's saying at this total late hour. Do you think it's weird that she has no attorney with her?
Com- completely weird and probably of her own doing.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just think that, and most times when a pro offer is done, or even if a person is being held in custody on a charge, normally they'll have some type of counsel and representation there. Um, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, this is kind of a weird setup because where's her counsel? Where's her attorney at? The other thing that I thought was weird is that, she kind of questioned the fact as to why Sigfredo would bring someone else in when I specifically asked you to do it. And the answer to that question is is because it's a crime. Most people think that it's easier to do a crime when I get someone else to help me or someone else. And that's probably, I don't want to give a how-to manual to commit crime, but I think everyone know the general rule is the less people involved, the better.
Yeah.
So I find it kind of funny that she, acts as if she's perplexed. Like, why would he go to someone else when this was a conversation that he and I had between us?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, my guess is that probably her family had no more money to pay her attorneys. So that's why neither attorney from the trials showed up to help her with the proffer. Do you think that's usually the reason? No money?
It is probably the reason because rule number one is I found out about rule number one a very difficult way. I was, literally the second day in court, and I saw a bunch of attorneys, y'all private guys who got all the glitz and glamour about you, and they kept asking for continuance for failure to comply with rule one. And my dumb ass, I'm sitting there looking through my notes like rule one. Fair to comply with rule one. What the hell are they talking about? So I asked about it. I was like, what rule is all these attorneys talking about? And that was when someone told me rule one is that the client didn't pay them all their money yet, so they're not handling their case. So most times, once the trial is over, all appeals are filed, it's going to be hard in general to get that attorney to come back for anything that's done outside of that without you giving them something to make their wallet a little bit healthier. So that's probably the case. Some jurisdictions, though, this is actually odd because it doesn't happen at all, but I have heard of some state jurisdictions where those scenarios happen. Attorney already represented a person, appeals exhausted, it's over. They're going to do a pro offer or interview or interrogation. Some jurisdictions actually do have attorneys who they'll assign for those limited instances. But I think that's probably a bad way to do it because you know how hard it would be to get caught up to speed on the case just to be able to sit in and know what the hell is going on. Pardon me, heck is going on. I keep forgetting this isn't my channel. I curse a lot.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So to answer this question, didn't Christopher DeCoste stay after the conviction? Well, he sort of did, because remember after Katie was convicted and sentenced, Kawas gave a little talk to the media. It was on Deep Dive True Crime, where she claimed that, we're still going to help her out, do whatever we can. Well, whatever. Well, Kawas was not involved with this, as far as I know. But in the second Proffer video, one of the male officers did say that they got a call from Christopher DeCoste, and that's how they knew that Katie was going to do this proffer. So, so DeCoste was sort of helping out, and I think they even asked Katie during the second interview if she wanted to go and call DeCoste, but she said she didn't want to or something. Yeah, but yeah. So anyway, I mean, just as Marcus mentioned, my guess is that her family had no money left to pay these attorneys to drive up from Southern Florida to wherever this was to be with her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved for her to actually call the attorney because I know I already know the answer to that. He definitely would have declined. It's very few instances, especially when you're talking travel. It's very few instances where I could count on maybe both of my hands where someone was an old client and I saw them in court. And normally this will happen when I see somebody about to get what I like to call railroaded.
Mhm.
But there are very few instances in my decade plus career where I saw someone who was an old client and I was like, hey, Your Honor, go ahead, put my name on that file. I'll take this for a limited purpose. It has happened, but it's very uncommon. And it's definitely not going to be common with something like this when you're talking about travel, the complexity of the case, the profile of the case. Now, early on, you may stick around when the case is really kind of fresh, the verdict is fresh, because there's still some value in it from a publicity standpoint. But kind of after that dissipates, you probably won't find a lot of attorneys who would jump on something like
Mhm.
that.
What about this? I don't know if you know the answer because this is a Florida case. But if someone has a public defender, would the public defender have to show up for a post-conviction proffer?
No, they wouldn't have to show up for a post-conviction proffer because, I mean, the constitutional right for counsel is really specific, and that there has to be a pending criminal action against you as an individual. Some states, like I said, because I've seen some states, I believe Mississippi, where they had some programs like that where they would appoint counsel. But most times, because I can remember kind of asking that, it came up in the situation when I was a young public defender, and they were like, hey, we don't have the manpower, but when you look at the constitutional right for counsel, it relates to you being charged with a crime with which you have jail exposure. You know what I mean? So that pro offer doesn't necessarily give you any jail exposure. It was the same, they use that same, like, how does a public defender end up in child support court? Because they don't pay child support, they have a chance of jail exposure. So constitutionally, you can be appointed counsel for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And similarly, Luis Rivera was asking for a court-appointed attorney to just help him while he was being a witness during these trials. And that was rejected because there's no right to counsel for that, where he already made his deal.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's like, well, the state doesn't have unlimited resources to give everybody an attorney. So,
right, yeah,
okay,
that would be that would be an administrative nightmare, definitely.
yeah. Think of how much money that could cost. So, okay, how much time do you have left?
I got as much time as you need since we was on CP time.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, let's listen to like another, say, like 8-minute chunk of this.
Go ahead.
This is definitely not very fruitful. Yeah.
May I ask if that's even a possibility?
Very much.
Because it's like at the end of the day, it's like of course, like I felt like, why didn't he just step up and say something?
I think he had a similar thought that you thought. You remember
But that's why
20 minutes ago when
fighting.
you said that if I had come forward, it would have screwed everything up for him. I think he has a very similar thought that he would do the same for you.
He's protecting you,
for you.
I think we can think.
So, and that's when in reality, both of you are only protecting one person right now. That was, well, at this point, that's changed. But Charlie was the only one.
Oh, he was the last person that we were protecting. Believe me, if it's just okay, like that's why I didn't understand why it took so long to like arrest him either. I was like, with all of this information and all, like it would.
If you would have talked to us, we'd have been arrested immediately. I tried to come to you,
but that like it never came off that way where it's like, oh, like she.
Knocked on your door. Why are you so scared of the FBI? Why are you so scared?
Nobody ever said who they were. Like I looked out the window and you guys did not
saw
say
them
who
with badges on. You said on the phone those are police. The police.
I never said it. It was his friend that came around the block, and he told me that the FBI was in there. You guys, I swear, you guys never announced it. I was the only one. Didn't you guys have a conversation on the phone? I mean, didn't you guys hear my conversation on the phone with
So
Sigfredo?
Mike,
If I would have, yes,
somebody might hit.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then-
Mike
and
already
then
told
he
you
had
the
told
FBI was
me-
talking to him.
The FBI was talking to him. And then even on the phone, he's like talking about like, oh, these people are talking to me about like Tallahassee or whatever.
And then we went to
And
your lawyer, we went to Sigfredo's lawyer, tried to talk to him, and we wanted you to talk to us, you never would talk to us.
I was more than willing to talk, but just the way that every single time that it happened, it wasn't the way that it was. Like you guys said that they announced, you guys never announced to me. I did not know until Mike told me that I had asked him, and you guys were already over there. You guys came at the same time. So I'm trying to blow up his phone, trying to see like who is it that's like knocking, and you guys never announced it. My dog is like
So every
barking
time
in the
you
back.
someone knocks on your door, you call somebody to find out who it is. Call somebody.
It's just the way that you
Don't
guys
ask who
like.
it is. They just knocked on the door. We were just trying to talk to you. Anyway, that's irrelevant at this point. But bottom line, all right. We don't have but a little bit more time. Is there anything that you can think of that conversation-wise that you had with Charlie or anybody else regarding this that we don't know about that you can help yourself out with by telling us about? Because right now you haven't told us a whole lot of what we haven't done.
But that was always my problem, because if I had all the answers, it would have been so much easier to just go by and.
I'm not even asking for all the answers. I'm not asking for any answer, any information.
If you were sitting in our shoes and you'd watched all the trials and you saw what we got right and what we got wrong, is there something we are missing that you think we need to know?
I don't even know where to go from there. Like something that.
Did we get something wrong?
I would gear towards
Oh, okay.
Charlie's issues, not your own. I mean, I know I know where you differentiate.
Because there was a lot of confusion. Like I alone was confused, like how everything came about. It's like, okay, yeah, everybody was lying to each other. So there's all that confusion already. At that time, I can't think of why I acted the way I did, how I, even prior to even giving in and doing this for Charlie. I can't explain to you other than financial issues that's what I'm saying, like he manipulated me. And this is like through time of him telling me things little by little, and then we just gave him like, yeah, whatever, like I had somebody, and obviously I threw it off on Sigfredo. But when I'm talking to Sigfredo about it, it's never any details. So it's like, I was kind of always just like, okay, like I just ping ponged it from one person to another. So it's not like for certain, like I'm there, like, coming up with like a master plan of like what's gonna happen and this is how it's gonna happen. It's just Charlie feeding me things that I can't even for the life of me remember specific, like what it is that he exactly said or, wanted me to do.
What's something that we don't know about how this all came together after the bump, obviously we have the things that are on the phone calls that you've heard, everybody's heard hundreds of times in this, everybody in this room I could say has probably heard them hundreds of times. Obviously we know that. Outside of that, you guys had outside conversations. Obviously you were sweating it, you got police, FBI knocking on your doors. You have people getting arrested now, your child's father is now arrested and charged with this. I know conversations happened. You guys said, okay, let's not talk on phones anymore. So conversations happened. You guys met in person, had conversations. What were those conversations like?
With Sigfredo?
With
Both.
Sigfredo and with Charlie. Those
Really,
conversations.
everything was kind of like on the phone too. Like not just that. Obviously, we were still talking on the phone. I wasn't under the impression. Charlie's always been the one who's been paranoid about it. Charlie and Sigfredo's paranoid about it. Apparently, I'm the only one who was like okay with talking on the phone because I wasn't really hiding anything. Like, yeah, like I knew about it, but I wasn't like saying, like.
I'm talking about after the phone. Charlie calls you, tells you don't talk on your phones, our phones are tapped. You guys get off the phone. Sigfredo goes out and buys you and him burner phones. Okay? When that happens, you and Charlie have other conversations where you meet in person. Y'all have other conversations through WhatsApp. What are those conversations like?
With the WhatsApp, it's just where we're gonna like meet up.
That was your location to meet up. Okay,
Yeah.
when you met up, what were those conversations like?
Okay, well, what's the icon? That was the conversation about like the whole bump.
Okay.
And then that's what I told you, like I had seen his parents, but it wasn't to meet his parents. But I'm just, like, I've never, like, even spoken to his mom or anything about any of this. Obviously, my opinions on what everything now is different, and yeah, like she, like, knew everything, or like him and Charlie were always talking about it, because why else would you always walk away? But if you're gonna involve me in this, and why was he always walking away? Because he was like protecting his mom
Right.
the whole time.
Absolutely. But what was his conversations like with you about that? Okay, we talked about the bump. He told you your approach. Y'all had other conversations, okay? They approached the bump. You tried to call the phone number and you couldn't get through. I'm sure you went back and had that conversation with Charlie. What were those conversations like?
It was all on the phone. I mean, it
No,
was all
there was
on the recorded phone calls.
But after those phone calls, he specifically calls you, tells you, we cannot talk on the phones. Hang up your phone. We can't talk on the phone where our phones are tapped. You guys stop talking and communicating on the phone at that point.
And never spoke on the phone again after.
You talk WhatsApp.
Through WhatsApp, you
Use
did.
WhatsApp.
And you said through WhatsApp, it's only
Okay.
locations to meet up. So we know y'all met up. We know there was other conversation because there was
He
y'all
never
weren't
said,
arrested right away.
yeah, but he never said anything on WhatsApp either, like no specific.
What
sort of,
about
like,
your
conversation.
in-person conversation? You met him in person. What kind of conversations did you have in person with him? After that, after you stopped talking on the phone, now you're probably freaking out. Shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah.
People are being arrested. FBI's knocking on your door. This ain't flying under the radar. It's 2 years later. You thought you got away with it. Now you didn't. Now you're sweating. What are those conversations like?
I can't remember what.
You can't remember any of the conversations that we don't already know about that's already been in trial.
Yeah, no, I can't remember any of the conversations we had after.
Okay, those are the kind of conversations that are going to help you, because what you're giving us is stuff we already know,
Yeah,
stuff that we're already aware of, stuff that we already have, stuff that we already have a really good case.
Yeah.
You're wanting help. Those are the conversations you need to remember, the things that we don't know, the things that we did not get on recordings, the things that we were not a part of, the things that we did not have any kind of information about. Those are the things that you need to remember.
those are the conversations I can't even remember right now. Like, I don't.
But you've had years to think about this stuff.
I
It seems
think
like
that's-
today, it
that's-
seems like we're coming up with new questions today. You've been thinking about this case for years while you're sitting in jail.
But that's the thing. I don't think about this case like sitting in the jail. Yeah, like there's.
You don't think about the fact that you won't see your children
Two different
for the rest of their
trial
lives? You don't think about that?
Yes,
This
I
case
do.
is what caused that.
Hey,
I know.
if you want to spend the rest of your life in prison, you're gonna have
And
a
I-
real
Believe
comforting
me, I don't.
conversation with yourself and your attorney, something, because you're not there. These are conversations where an attorney usually asks us to leave the room so they can talk to you and say, look, you've got to come straight forward. You can't be half partial truth and half partial
And I-
deflecting the blame on everybody else. I didn't really know, but I should have. There are things there that you knew. I'm not saying you know everything, but there's things there that you knew, and what you're telling us just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't.
Well, it doesn't make sense. It's like
All of it.
The
doesn't
fact
make
that you don't remember
sense.
any conversation about probably one of the most stressful times of your life.
That's why it's.
Okay.
I can't.
No. You remember those conversations. Those conversations are things that stick in your head. Those are the kind you can suppress. You can suppress things as it goes on, and you're trying to focus on a trial. You know, you're only giving us what we already know. You're only giving us the things that we already knew happened. You're not giving us anything else. And those are the conversations that you know, because that's the most stressful time of your life. You're going around, your baby daddy's just been arrested for this murder that you helped facilitate, that did not happen without you. Okay, so you know those conversations. Those are the ones that you need to sit back and think about and try to remember, because those are the ones that we don't know. Those are the ones that are going to help you.
And I understand you don't want to take the blame for this, but
It's
you
not
have
about
taken the
blaming.
blame. You have taken it. You're here. You're not getting out. This is the blame for you. Doesn't matter if you turn around and say, yes, I knew about it the whole time, or, oh, I didn't really know what was happening. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is what you heard, what you said, what you did with these people. That's what's relevant. That's all that's relevant. Is
Can't
what
get
actually
any more
happened.
trouble. It can only get better.
And I
I'm trying
completely
to
understand that
explain.
this is the part.
Okay, time for a break. Marcus, are you there?
Those investigators are driving me nuts.
Well, they're getting really mad at her, I think. They're like sick and tired of her.
Normally when these things happen, I can tell you how I like to do it and how I've done it. Like normally when these things happen, you're like, okay, it's probably some attorney who's working this in the background somewhere. But when you bring the attorney in the room, then you create this heightened elevation. People don't want to talk. They like, oh, do I need an attorney? So you normally never have your attorney out the room. But there's equipment with cameras where you can sit and observe all of this. So normally there's some line of communication between whoever that prosecutor is, who's in the background, and the agents. And we don't do it all the time, but sometimes for something like this, it probably would be recommended. I said, but I'd be sending the hell out of messages to those investigators right now because I understand the frustration, but I think their line of questioning as they're getting frustration, you kind of want to avoid those things because it can just tend to be problematic when you're pushing. It can always come back and kind of kick you into you know what on the back end. So, when I said they were combining interview and interrogations, they just explained exactly why, because there's a lot of stuff that they don't know that they're searching for, so they're trying to get this information out. But investigators should probably, and that's why normally you think good cop, bad cop is just something you see on Law and Order SVU, but that's actually a real tactic that you would use. You normally want to have one person who's going to push, the other person who's not pushing as hard, because when you got that, you normally keep a balance that'll keep your agents from pushing to the point where you're trying to look like you're forcing an individual to say something one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm sure you've had plenty of clients that acted like Katie, right? Where they just keep denying any sort of involvement despite the mountain of evidence. So what are your tactics to trying to get on the client's good side so that they will tell you the truth or help you out?
I'll tell you, I'm normally the bad cop. I'm the attorney that other attorneys come to when they got opposing counsel or somebody who don't want to act right. So I'm kind of the enforcer on that side of the game. One thing that I normally just don't do, I don't accept. If I'm answering questions, if it's an interview or interrogation, if it's an interview, I'm probably a little bit more lenient because it's open-ended and I'm trying to do. But if it's something this type of thing, you don't get the opportunity to ask me a question. That was one of the things I put in the chat that I thought was weird. She asked them a question, then the interviewer responded by giving his opinion of what he thought someone was thinking. And I was like, where the hell do they do that at? That's something that's just generally a no-go. Normally in these situations, when someone does ask a question, I just cut them off and say, you don't ask the questions here. I ask the questions, and your job is to answer them. Hell, I do that during a trial. Just like, hey, but that's kind of like, when you had those situations where the witness asked a question, I'm like, no, you don't ask the questions. I ask the questions and you answer them, because I think you just kind of set yourself up for something that could be a hurdle later. You got your investigator giving their opinion of what he thought someone thought in response to her questions. That's just a road that you probably wouldn't want to go down. Like I said, you just have to have that balance, and you have to know that witness. Just from everything I've seen with her in this, what I've read about and saw previous testimony from her, going the more aggressive route is probably going to yield you more fruit, because she just strikes me as someone who thinks that she can manipulate a situation. And when you got somebody who can manipulate a situation, normally trying to actually be a cooler head is not going to be the tactic that's going to get you more information. So I kind of understand why they're pushing, but they got to be really cautious here when they're answering questions that she's given, and you're answering that question with an opinion and not a fact. That's a road that can make you have to come back and do some stuff over.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You want to watch another little chunk?
I want to do whatever you tell me we're going to do.
I'm sorry. I know you have family. It's the weekend. I mean, do you have some great New Year's Eve plans?
There's very few people in this world who have carte blanche authority. You have carte blanche. Go ahead and go through it.
What? What authority? What did you say?
Well, you can just it's a phrase they use carte blanche. But we're just gonna do it just because you asked.
Oh, okay, carte blanche. Okay,
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
what are you saying? Okay, let's watch this for say another 6 minutes.
That it's like, I can't,
But you were worried about it being on camera a while ago. You gotta wipe that out of your head.
I've already.
People already know you're on camera. You're on camera. You're on camera in all this. That's irrelevant. What you need to focus on is remembering what happened and telling us what happened. That's the most important thing for you right now.
Like
Because without that, you're here.
There's nothing.
Yes, you're here.
those conversations are the ones that you need to try to.
But that's why, even from the beginning, that if like, I would just, don't you think I would have just wanted to cooperate from the beginning, because you guys.
I don't know why you didn't. We gave you many opportunities, and the whole thing, you didn't know who was at the door, whatever. We tried, Katie, and you didn't come forward. I don't know why you didn't. You must have your own reasons. That's why I'm asking you if you've been threatened. If you've been threatened, we can protect you. If somebody's threatening you or threatening your family,
I
we
mean,
can
now
protect
I'm
your
kind of
family.
worried about this whole thing after the trial about the whole Latin King or whatever, but apparently that has nothing to do with me.
No, I don't know where this, yeah, Latin King has nothing to do with you. I'm talking about why you didn't cooperate to start with. Why you have failed to cooperate all the way until now. If there's something keeping you from doing it, please let us know. We can help with that.
Is it just you don't remember the conversations?
A lot of the things, yes, I don't remember. That's why it's like, and there was never conversations that stuck out, because if something was to stick out, that's why right now I know it gets frustrating, and I see it, and I'm seeing it on your side. It's like, if I was talking to somebody to like just say it, and I've always wanted to be the one who says it. But if I'm not certain about it, we wouldn't have even spoken on the phone to begin with if I was just gonna go off and just talk on the side anyways.
Right, my thing is it's the conversations after you guys get off the phone, the things that.
Yeah, and there's nothing that sticks out to even be like, oh,
So when you met the icon that day, remember that? You met
Yes.
the icon that day. You didn't
Yes.
talk about the bump, because the bump happened almost 2 weeks before that. The bump actually, he told you about the bump in the car and at your work, outside your work, he told you.
Yes.
When he called you back down the icon, it was because of a different bump. Do you remember any of those other bumps that happened? Because that's when you're on the phone cussing out, saying, I want to fuck up whoever's doing this, blah,
Because
blah,
he
blah,
was just
all this other
constantly
stuff.
talking about, oh, this is, because he's thinking that he's getting blackmailed, and I'm here thinking that Lewis is blackmailing Sigfredo. So that's the whole frustration. And like, I'm here trying to ask Sigfredo things. He's not telling me things. And I'm here trying to figure out things to relate back to Charlie. And Charlie just keeps on and on about the same thing. So I was the one who was frustrated. That's the point that it's like I said all of that, because it's like, you're making all of this, like you're listening to us and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, then I'm going to call the FBI. But then it's like, what was I going to do to call the FBI and what? Tell them what I'm telling you guys right now? At the end of the day, this is my life. Believe me, I want to get home to my children. I don't want to bullshit anything. I don't want to go through all of this. I don't want to waste your time. That's the last thing. I am in prison right now. I would
Yes.
never think that I'd be in prison.
So tell us about, like, when he called you down there, what did he tell you about?
That's what, nothing sticks out to my head.
There was a bump. He
What
didn't
bump?
tell you about other bumps, a letter, a text message, a call to the office, those other bumps. That's when he called you down to the icon.
But he already said that over the phone.
No,
About-
he just told you to come meet him. Unless you talk on WhatsApp, it's not on the phone calls. That's what I'm trying to get you to
Because he
understand.
already said
How did those
about,
conversations go?
but we were on phone call already regarding that. There was okay, so his mom got that bump, and then the following thing was somebody, we were all trying to call that number, and I'm here lying to him that I called it, and then Sigfredo's lying to me about calling that number, but
Right.
Nobody's really calling the number. I don't know if Sigfredo ever really did call the number, because then he did say to me something about there's somebody Spanish that picked up the phone.
That was
and
later
then-
on, yes.
So did he really ever call that number?
Later on he did, yes.
Okay, and like left the message, or that's the messaging that was on there? Okay, so then he's telling me that's all recorded, like there was nothing ever after that we spoke separate from it. And then he told me about that. Charlie told me about somebody going to his office and dropping off a letter, or that they need that information or whatever. But that was all on the phone. There was never anything
You
separate
went
from
down to
that.
remember you went down to the icon, met him at the restaurant?
Yeah,
That wasn't
I
on the
think
phone.
he's just said everything that's been happening, not
Okay.
anything.
Well, it was right after one of the
different,
bumps.
yeah.
That was right after one of the bumps. That's why I told you that.
Like, hey, you need to
Refresh
figure
your
this
memory.
out. You need to find out. He's pressuring me. Like, at this whole time, he's pressuring me things. Like, he's like, you need to find out what's going on. And he's trying to figure out if, like, Sigfredo is probably doing something or trying to get somebody to get money from him or whatever it is, whatever the cause. And Sigfredo's freaking out because it might be Lewis that's doing something. So
What
because
did he
he's the one who's.
That's what I mean. What did he say to you to make you think that he thought Sigfredo was extorting him? What would he say about that? Tell us that conversation. That's what we're trying to get from you. How that conversation went.
No, because he's just going off. That's why I don't remember specific things that
Right.
he's saying, but he's probably, he's going off and telling me, you need to figure this out, you need to figure this out. Because in his head, he's probably like, okay, well, somebody's gonna out all of us or whatever.
So he
And
actually
I'm
said to
not-
you, like, hey, is Sigfredo trying to extort me for more money?
No, he never,
That conversation didn't come, he's made about somebody's gonna out all of us. During one of those conversations, there was a comment made about somebody is on the inside, somebody too close.
about the layers or
That's
whatever.
no,
And
that's what
somebody-
you said. This is getting too detailed. There's somebody on the inside that knows. Somebody on the inside that
I'm
knows.
thinking it's Lewis.
Okay.
Like Lewis is doing all of this. Like this, that was always my assumption that it was Lewis doing this because maybe he talked to
So
somebody.
you
or
at
it
no
was-
point thought it was the cops, you were like, somebody's.
I mean, no, like I would think that it has something to do with policing.
You would think Lewis was flipping already.
Something,
You
yeah.
But you're
yes.
telling Sigfredo that. Did you tell Charlie that? Did you ever tell Charlie you think?
No, I'm getting this vibe from Sigfredo because Sigfredo is freaking out. The only reason why he would be freaking out is because it has to do something with Lewis.
Right.
Now, this is when I put two and two together that I'm like, okay, like, did he do something with Lewis? Because I'm thinking in my head the whole time that it was, like whoever, me going to Sigfredo about it, I would think that Sigfredo would go to somebody else about it. And the whole time I'm just relaying it to Sigfredo, but wouldn't be stupid enough for him to really be the one who's doing it. Does that make sense? No?
Yeah. You thought Sigfredo would be the one in the process.
In the process, yeah.
To be able to get someone to take care of it for you.
Yes, basically.
Okay, so
Not
you look
never
at him knowing that
really-
he has those connections that he could have got somebody to do it.
Yeah, not him doing anything.
But then he got paid, and he's giving you money, and you're giving them
I
money.
mean, but that has nothing to do with me. He could pay off somebody else. That's
And then
him getting
gave
paid.
you money, and then you met out outside of Lewis's house. So obviously at that point you knew Lewis was involved. He was involved. I think if I'm remembering correctly, these guys can correct me. You've said it before. Like Lewis and Sigfredo they're like this. They're always together, always doing things together. So why would you think one would do something without the other if that's how they are?
I mean, they hang out with a whole bunch of guys too.
Right, but
I
also-
would think that.
A whole bunch of guys wasn't at Lewis's house.
Did Sigfredo make another trip up here?
So confusing, huh?
Did Sigfredo make a third trip? Do you know if he made one before the June? Did he come up before June?
Not that I can recall, but probably. I don't know how many. He never told me when he would go out of town.
Did you ever
That was
have
the
to
thing,
go-
being
Did
out
you
of
ever have
town.
to go get more money from Charlie prior to the murder?
I did lie about one time to Charlie. I was with Sigfredo, me and him got back together, and then that's now that you said out of town, it was always out of town. So then that gave me an assumption that it wasn't in Miami, like I have to get out of town. Anything he was gonna do, any type of business or whatever, it's like he's going out of town.
So what'd you
That's-
lie about?
Oh, I lied I lied to Charlie about needing money for,
For
when,
this?
yeah, but we ended up taking the kids out, like staying somewhere else, and then that was, yeah.
So
but
you like
besides
to
that-
pay money for this, but it was actually for you guys to go on vacation or.
Yeah, like we just like stayed somewhere, like, rented a hotel or whatever, like with the kids. So it was never like a trip.
But did you ever get money from him on a different time?
This is from Sigfredo?
No, from Charlie.
Charlie for
another trip, like April or May or anything like that.
It's Sigfredo ever need money
Oh, right now.
to do any kind of other stuff other than the June trip and then the murder? Was there any other time that you asked for money for him to do whatever preparations he needed to?
Yeah.
So,
No, I don't know. I'm not certain.
okay. but that's what they're asking us. Any other
Yeah,
time
yeah,
that he needed money for preparation.
I'm thinking in my head that maybe it has happened, but I'm not for certain, so I don't wanna say. Yeah, because Sigfredo has mentioned, times like, hey, I'm gonna need money, I need, to get out of town. Like he'd always just say, get out of town. Like when he said that, like that just triggered like
This is what
like
it's for.
something that he would say, out of town. I'd be like, oh, okay, and then I just relay it back. So it might have happened where there's another time before that, but I'm just not certain. I know I lied about that one time about him going out of town, but it wasn't really for that. Like we ended up going out with the kids and just used that money to go out with the kids. So I'm
You're fine.
no, it's not that. It's just that I want to get to the bottom of this too.
Here's
And
the
it's
thing, like you said, okay, so before you were in county, you were worried about like if you were something you remember, you get back and you remember and you'd be afraid to write it down because people will steal it. Because you're worried about it hindering your case. Okay, your case is not this now.
Yeah.
If you hear, and after talking to us, if something comes to your mind, whatever, I think you guys you get stationery and stuff in there, start writing it down. Reach back out to your attorney or whichever.
Talk to Chris.
I just don't ever think that there was, because
you're gonna have a lot of time to think. Like you're gonna.
But it's like, I know you guys are about the whole situation of like conversations that like occurred. There was nothing that like really stuck out that like, why would, for that, we wouldn't have never spoken on the phone to begin with. A lot of the conversation was already on the phone. So obviously I was free to want to talk about all of this stuff on the phone because I wasn't really in fear of something happening. I'm feeding off of both of them freaking out and I'm trying to figure it out with them, but they're not telling me the facts. And this is why the whole thing of like me cooperating and stuff from the beginning, but I don't really have all the facts. Like right now I'm back in square one. I don't have the specific facts, but from what I just relayed. And now
but I'm talking about the beginning, from beginning to end of all this. Anything that you think of or you remember is what I'm talking about. Anything that's gonna come to mind that you didn't think of, because you said you suppressed a lot of it. And then you'd go back and then you're thinking like, oh yeah, this happened, oh yeah, that happened, and then you forget it again when it's time to come back up. Those are the thoughts that I'm talking about to write down and kind of keep note of, because those are things you don't want to risk forgetting them again and now you remember them. And those are the things you need to reach out to Chris and when you have those, so that way you can. Because if it's something that we don't know, something that hasn't already been out here, something we haven't already discussed with you, or has been brought up in trial that you know that we have, you've seen everything we've got, okay?
We're gonna leave here and think of questions we forgot to ask. Sure, it's inevitable. It's gonna happen to all of us, so.
Yeah, and I had a whole bunch of questions that I wanted to ask you guys too, specifically with the whole thing too, like, I have a lot of questions about Sigfredo, but obviously nobody's spoken to Sigfredo. I wish I would have just asked these questions. Believe me, I'm the one who's at the end of the day where it's like if I would have just asked questions or if I would have just been more like, like instead of like bullshitting about it around that time, like I wasn't taking that's what I'm telling you. Like I'm looking at it back now, like yeah, I feel stupid because the whole time I'm like not asking the same questions and I'm in this, but I'm not really taking it seriously. Like I'm just like, oh, okay, and it's not something that shouldn't have been taken seriously. Like this is obviously it led up to this situation right now, but these are things that like I want you guys to go up to Sigfredo and ask these questions. Those are the stuff that only he can answer, and then why he was saying the things that he said. Yeah. I still talk to his mom every now and then. No, but that's the thing. It's like I try to relay, like, that's another. I can't have a conversation with him. Is that like not allowed? I don't know how we're at
that's a sticky wicket. We'll have to look at that. I don't know how we would accomplish that. I know the prisons don't allow you to contact.
I know, like not to have prison, but in this situation, like we have children together. I don't have communication with him. Like I don't really have that direct communication. I'm having a hard time with my mother-in-law because of the fact that it's like my family's trying to protect my children, and that's my number one priority is the protection of my children. So they're not really comfortable with, the whole thing with Sigfredo's mom.
Oh,
let
she
alone
tried to
with
see.
Sigfredo. I mean, yeah, but she lives in California now. Yeah, this has caused a lot.
So let's make her
Issues.
kind of not want to talk and have conversations with you because she can't see.
I mean, it's just very hard because then it's like I'm again in the middle because it's like I want my children to have their grandparent, but it's like at the same time I'm getting frustrated because it's like I don't want this ongoing thing and anything to mess this whole situation up where I don't know how much more screwed I could get, but it's, you know, like I just didn't want anything to hinder that. And
Okay, you feel like you heard enough?
When you told me I heard enough, that's what I heard enough. But it's funny. I was going through some of the comments, and your tribe is hilarious. The comments had me laughing. But one comment asked, "What could have possibly been done different to make her be more truthful?" And I thought that was a good question, because I don't know. This just isn't a pro offer to me. This is just an interview where they're trying to go fact finding, and literally the only thing that they could probably do outside of this, because the words I do not recall some of the greatest words ever uttered by a defended or convicted individual in the history of life. But the only other thing they can do, and they tried to do it at one point, was find something that you have to use as a pressure point. How was her conduct while she's been incarcerated? Did she do anything that she wasn't supposed to do while she was incarcerated? The only time I seen them try to use either olive branch or a pressure point was when the gentleman made a statement as to offer protection if she's receiving any type of threat. That's something that's normally a tactic that you can use, but you have to have a leverage, a pressure point to be able to push to entice a person to come forward. Without that, I mean, I don't recall is is a great response, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who have asked people to say I don't recall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. What about this? Why doesn't the state talk to Sigfredo and give him a proffer? Well, my prosecutor friend Cyril Yu talked about this case a couple of times, and he said typically they don't try to make a deal with the person who actually did do the murder. So he's the one that shot Dan Markel twice in the head. So why should they give him a deal after all this? It's been years since his conviction.
Right, and that's 100% accurate. If you can get the trigger man, anybody outside of that is, you know, that's the yeah. And I mean, just think of it from let's think of it from just a common sense, not even a real legal nuance standpoint. Could you imagine? Like, I wouldn't be the judge to bring that case back in my court and give the guy who was a trigger man any leniency, because you're going to lose your next election when your opposition says you easy on crime. I mean, it's just a bad look all around. So yeah, that definitely probably would never happen. I've never seen that happen ever.
Yeah. Okay. So isn't it interesting? She starts talking about her kids, like she cares about her kids. I was like, what was that last sentence anyway? It was like this huge run-on, incoherent sentence
Right.
about her kids and Sigfredo's mom and
Right.
her family.
Hey, you always got to find a point where something will try to humanize you. You know, children, family. That's one of those things that'll try to humanize you. It's funny because a little bit earlier, before we watched that last snippet, um, I saw a comment that said the guy was pushing a little too hard, and a couple of times I felt like I was like, "Are the waterworks about to come?" Because you can kind of hear the cracks in her voice as the gentleman was talking. And then, right after I saw that comment about him pushing too hard, you see he kind of took his foot off the gas, so to speak. But yeah, you really want to be careful as an investigator when you're trying to find facts from an interview about pushing too hard, because there's a thin line between someone offering the fact and you pushing someone in a direction to elude them to get to a fact.
Mhm. Okay. Did you keep up with the Charlie Adelson trial, the one that just happened?
I didn't. I read the newspaper article about that trial, but I didn't watch it in depth or keep up with it in depth. Some of the tomfoolery that I be reviewing, it don't allow me to look at real juicy cases unless it's some celebrity doing something stupid.
Mhm. Yeah, I know on your channel you cover a lot of like celebrity news and lawsuits.
Yeah, because those are the ones that people really tend to want to know what's going on, and a lot of them are just so stupid. I was like, yeah, they give you so much material.
Mhm. Oh, what do you think about this? So you might not know this, but after Katie's trial, when she was found guilty last year, her female attorney started crying right there at the table, in the courtroom, like she buried her head down into her hands and was like openly sobbing for how long? How long do you guys think she was sobbing? For at least 30 seconds on camera, I think. So, what do you think of that?
That's ridiculous. That's just a little bit of tomfoolery, in my personal opinion. I don't think Waterworks is counsel. There's I've represented elderly women who had drug trafficking charges that stemmed from their grandchildren being in the home doing things that are illegal. Those are cases when you be like, man, Miss Pearly, it ain't no way Miss Pearly did this. Those are cases that you're really invested in. And fortunately, we won that case. But if Miss Pearly was to been found guilty, it ain't nothing that can happen in court that's going to cause me. I feel like just as a professional, I don't really give a damn about how emotionally vested you are. You have to maintain some sense of professionalism, and I couldn't have been the opposition or the judge in that case because I would have just threw a box of tissues across the courtroom because that's just something that, as a professional, you shouldn't do. I don't know. Have you ever seen a doctor? I never seen my doctor after I had brain surgery come in the room and just was like, like if I saw him doing that, I would look at him kind of sideways personally.
Mhm. Well, have you ever seen any attorney crying in court after losing?
I've seen an attorney cry in court after losing when that attorney was a defendant.
Oh, when the attorney's a defendant?
That's the only situation where an attorney should be in court crying if you're an actual defendant in the case. If you're a defendant in the case and you just lost, hey, I feel you. Hey, DFD might start crying if I were in that situation. But when you're representing somebody, it's nothing. I mean, I've represented people who I just knew deep down within all the facts pointed to them being innocent. And sometimes the ball doesn't bounce in your favor; it just doesn't land in your court. And like you eat those, you feel those. I was down about it, but I'm not gonna. The other thing to me is, especially when you're at a trial level, what does me crying doesn't show any strength to the client? You know what I mean? Like this thing may not be over, it may be in the pill there. The client knows that I'm vested and I actually believe them from all the damn meetings we had and my interaction with them about this case. So I don't know. Crying is, I don't know if it was a thing to just have the media camera do it and look and say, okay, oh, she burst it out in tears. But I see no value that it would provide. And I can't see how you would even tie yourself that emotionally. And I've had cases that I've lost as a defense attorney and I felt bad. I thought about it. My bosses had to come to me and say, hey, you got to let it go. But busting into tears isn't something that I don't think I've ever seen done ever in court. Have you ever seen any attorney busting into
No,
tears?
no, I haven't. Yeah. So
Have you ever busted into tears? Like,
no, I haven't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how about this question? Because sometimes people in YouTube comments keep saying, like, oh, like Charlie could go after his attorney for ineffective assistance of counsel. But I think that's a very, very high standard. And especially where it's someone's privately retained attorney. I
Right.
don't think there was anything that Rashbaum really did that was so horrible that you could say it's ineffective assistance of counsel. I mean, he got stuck with a crappy client with terrible set of facts
Right. Right.
and the evidence.
Right, and that's 100% true. That's often a common threat in effective assistant counsel. An attorney would have to do something that's so egregious for a bar association to even substantiate that finding. And you got to think attorneys have some flex, and it's kind of like, let's put it in an analogous situation, right? Let's say I had a case where I was looking at a medical doctor for overprescribing opioids or something to that effect, right? And I look at his record. I bring experts in because I don't know all these patient records. Like, okay, yeah, he shouldn't have did this. He did this. When you bring those cases, they're really hard to prove because doctors have a little bit of flexibility in how they prescribe stuff for each patient. It's different. They give doctors a little bit of deference. Attorneys have a little bit of deference as it relates to what they call strategy. That's kind of where the attorney falls within the attorney's framework of the strategic approach. And it would just have to be something so egregious, like, okay, did he fall asleep during trial? Did he miss like a really patently obvious constitutional objection? It would have to be something so egregious for something like that to hold up. I've never seen those things rarely hold up. I can't think of any firsthand case. I know a lot of cases where those claims were made against attorneys I know, but I can't think of one where one was substantiated. That's just kind of the go-to when someone loses their case. Ineffective assistance counsel.
Yeah. Okay. What is CPT? Do you know?
CPT. Where do you see?
Oh,
CPT?
colored people time. I think
Oh yeah, CP. Yeah, CP time. Right? Like you put the T on it. The time you always say. The CP is just colored people. You always say the word time. You said CPT. I'm like, is that some gang that I didn't know about from my days?
Yeah, I was like, some sort of therapy. I don't know.
Yeah,
Some
you say the
psychotherapy.
word time. You don't abbreviate with the T isn't a part of the abbreviation.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, Judy, I totally agree with you. I mean, Katie definitely knew Lewis was with Sigfredo. I mean, originally, Sigfredo was the one that was supposed to go and kill Dan, but then he recruited Lewis because he wanted company to have his friend help him drive because he knew he'd be totally drunk and, just coked up during the whole commission.
Yeah, and most crimes like that, like I've seen that, like it, most crimes, you like when those things happen, there's multiple people involved. Before they get done, you got to get yourself in a headspace to actually commit that crime. There's a few people out there who could just do it off of a complete sober mind, but that's really not the norm. A lot of times, when you see cases like that, it's armed robbery that's gone bad or something like that. It always involves a lot of drug consumption to get your head in that space, and you never want to do anything stupid alone. Misery loves company, so that's kind of what it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see if there are some other quick questions, and then we'll wind it up because I'm actually getting hungry here. What about you? Did you have dinner?
No, I haven't. I'm the cook at the house, so nobody eat until I eat. But this is a night we buy something out.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, thank you. People are saying they really appreciate you. They like hearing.
I appreciate you for having me on the platform to go over this. It actually made me think of a weird case that I think I'm probably going to do a live on, if not tonight, tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Oh, we have Deep Dive True Crime. So mentor lawyer James is an attorney in Tallahassee. So he's the reason why we even had this video to react to. So thank you, James. Appreciate it. Whatever little bit of revenue I get from this, I'll be glad to share it. So
Deep dive true crime. I would like to know of all like real juicy true crime cases, how many of them come out of the state of Florida? I see a lot of wild cases that come out
yeah,
of Florida.
yeah, it seems like there are so many drug related crimes, people with
Yeah,
drug, mental health problems,
yeah.
alcohol.
I see a lot of cases. The case I was actually thinking about, it happened in Florida. It was I called it The Goon Who Stole Christmas. It's probably going to be the title. But when I saw it and I said, man, that's crazy. I wonder where that happened at. And my son was like, probably Florida. And it ended up being in Florida. But it was three siblings on Christmas, two brothers, 14, 15, and an
Oh,
older sister.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just was a crazy shooting spree where brother was upset about the amount of value or type of gifts that he got. Sisters wanted to calm things down. Younger brother shoots the sister, then the older brother shoots the younger brother who shoots the sister, all on like Christmas Day or something like that. It was crazy, but I didn't think it was Florida initially because I heard the city name and I thought it was a different state. But when I looked it up, it was in Florida, and I was just like, buffoonery.
Yeah, I mean, it's so sad. There was a 14-year-old kid who was upset because he didn't get as many Christmas gifts as
Yeah,
his brother, so he started shooting.
yeah.
Killed the sister. Did the brother die, or is he just seriously injured?
No, I think he's just seriously injured. I was a little confused because I got to do a little bit more. But all of the reports I saw, both of them are in custody. One, the younger one, is in custody for the murder and weapons and other stuff. And I saw that the older brother was being held on attempted murder, and I was just like, what? For shooting the younger brother who shot his sister? It just like it didn't make any sense to me. I remember having a conversation with my son. I was like, I wonder why he's charged with that. I can't understand. And my son was like, oh, his defense should be he was defending his sister. And I said, no, that's his second defense. His first defense should be I was defending myself because this fool just shot my sister.
Yeah.
So I was scared for my life. So I was kind of shocked that they had him in there on an attempted murder charge. But it's so early. A lot of times they just say we're gonna charge everything. We may sort it out on the back end and everything. And the other question is, I want to know what the gifts was. Not that it justifies anything, but like, was it a PS5? Was it a pair of really expensive shoes? Like, was it a yo-yo? Like, yeah, like,
game system.
I need to know the gift so I can put all of this stuff in context. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so terrible. Well, what about this? Truth Lifestyles is another YouTube channel that I support. She wants to know, are there any Innocence Project cases that you think about? For me, no, I'm sorry. This case just kind of monopolizes my spare time. So right. I haven't had time to really read up on much. This is it.
I haven't really looked at any Innocent Project cases. I have looked at one where there's a for-profit organization, and it just relates to a case I did where law enforcement agencies it wasn't anything juicy like a murder, but I did a live on traveling within the United States with large amounts of cash, and law enforcement agencies, one in particular, are making a crap load of money by seizing U.S. citizens' money at the airport after they've been through security. And it was a video where a guy got out of prison, started a truck company. He had 2 trucks. He was in the process of going to buy a third with $39,000 cash. They seized his money, and he still hasn't got his money back. Now his business is struggling. And it was a nonprofit organization that's taking up that case, helping these guys who, essentially 60% of the revenue, we're talking millions of dollars a year, 60% of the revenue that was administratively taken didn't result in any criminal charges. So this organization is trying to get these people money back. And I thought that was dope.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of scrolling through to see if there's some quick question here. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, BP here. Really appreciate your support. I'm so glad you showed up. You know, like today is a bad day for my voice, and it's weird because
Right.
it's not like I was like screaming and yelling or talking all day at work today, but I'm gonna
Right.
go
No,
back
no
to
worries. I just
some.
had a little battery issue, and I normally keep it's like a portable battery that you can just jumpstart your car in your vehicle. I don't know
Mhm.
why it wasn't in there, so I was like, oh man, I gotta find somebody to get this jump so I can get to where I need to go. But it worked out, and like I said, I apologize, but I'm definitely grateful to be on the platform,
Oh
and I'm
yeah,
grateful for the audience.
thank you.
Everybody, make sure y'all hit the like button, and if you don't like the video, hit the dislike button twice.
It still bumps up the YouTube algorithm, so maybe
if you hit the dislike
get
button, that
pushed
helps.
out.
But if you hit it twice, it's not going to be anything. So,
Oh, okay, hit it twice. Okay, that makes
yeah,
sense.
hit it twice.
Okay. Well, didn't the jury consultant Josh Dubin, I think he worked for the Innocence Project or had something to do with it, but I think most people were not impressed by him during the
Mm.
Charlie Adelson's case. So, have you heard of attorneys spending or clients spending thousands of dollars on jury consultants?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Really? They do that?
I've seen that done, and that's one of the things I was like, man, if I was in private practice, that's all I would want to do. Like is because it's an art. I know when I had jury trials, like clockwork, I could remember telling clients or cases where I may have had co-counsel, and I can just look and be like, I guarantee you this individual is going to be the foreman, But it's a real art, and they have specialists who they hire firms to have specialists come because me personally, depending on a case that's like a homicide, a robbery, I tend to not want jurors who are too academically. I don't want a bunch of people. I don't want a bunch of brainiacs who have master degrees on those cases. I just don't. It is never favorable from a defense standpoint for me. But the exact opposite. If I'm a defense attorney and I'm representing somebody on who has a Ponzi scheme, so they may have embezzlement or something like that, I tend to kind of want someone who's a little bit more educated because I know some of the nuances I'm going to throw out in a defense may require someone who has a certain analytical background, who may have some exposure to the financial market, but there's definitely an art to it. And clients who have money, I've seen this all the time, especially if it's like litigation against pharmaceutical companies, a doctor who may have some resources. That's a common thing that they'll do. They'll fly specialists in from Los Angeles and pay them thousands of dollars just to sit there during the jury selection process and come up with the questions to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think in this case, though, I felt like the jury consultants alienated the jury or the potential jurors because, it seemed like some of them seemed pretty aggressive. And I do have some YouTuber friends who are there in person because I didn't get there until probably the following week. Yeah, they thought a couple of the men seemed very, strange and aggressive. Like they didn't fit in with the Tallahassee people.
Right. And that's another a part of it, though. What you said is it's going to do you no good to get some highfalutin attorney from New York to come down to talk to a jury in Mississippi.
Yeah.
I think that's going to go completely not in your favor. So, the other part of it is you got to have someone who can really meet with that demographic. You hear wild stories about jurors. Have you ever heard the story of? I know one attorney told me early on. He was like, when he was a young trial attorney, just the impression on the jury, he would always have these high speed shoes, and they were like Gators. And his boss was like, "Man, your shoes look too good." And he was like, "What you mean your shoes look too good?" He's like, I purposely wear run over shoes, and when I sit down, I cross my foot like this so the jury can see that I got some worn out holy shoes, because it gives them a perception of being able to relate, which to me I thought was ridiculous. But you got to have that connection. Bringing in some highfalutin Los Angeles guy to question jurors in Tallahassee, Florida is probably
Yeah.
going to be a bad look.
Yeah. Well, I think most of them were from New York City, and one of them has an office in Miami also. So, yeah, it just seemed weird. And he did say y'all. I was like, that sounded so phony, saying, now y'all need to think about this or whatever he was saying.
Like, y'all.
Said with a New York accent. Yeah.
Hey, you gonna get looked at as a city slicker, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It just seemed weird. It was like overkill because there were three guys that
Right.
showed up along with Charlie and
Right.
his two attorneys. So
Right.
the potential jurors could tell clearly this guy has money. You know,
Yeah.
why does he have this huge team?
But you never set those guys beside him either. Like normally, what I've seen in that scenario, they'll fly expert in. The expert will get somebody locally who's familiar with the judge. That person sits with the client while the experts actually don't even sit there. The experts work through that local counsel. They're sitting in the audience. They're back sitting in the audience because they don't want to give that, like, okay, you got, damn, this dude got the damn Johnny Cochran dream team here for jury selection. It just looks weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there were people that were closely watching YouTube as well as all sorts of social media just to figure out like what are people saying, like how's Charlie doing, how does the case look against Charlie.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So, yeah. Okay, well, I guess I'll go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for your time and expertise, sharing the laughter. People thought you had a great sense of humor, so hopefully they will watch your channel too.
Hey, I appreciate you having me anytime. Hey, thanks everybody for the comments, the feedbacks, the hilarious comments. Y'all are very entertaining tribe out there. Hey, if I don't hear from y'all again, y'all definitely have a blessed, safe new year. Enjoy family, friend, and just reflect back that, hey, wherever you are today, you made it out of whatever it is you were dealing with. So definitely count that as a blessing. Y'all have a blessed new year.
Okay, be sure to also subscribe to Debt Free Dad. Thank you. Have a good
Take care.
weekend. Okay, thanks, Marcus. I'll talk to you soon. Thank
All right,
you.
bye.
Bye.